Welcome. My name's James Johnson, and this is Discussions on Game of Thrones. You're looking at me, Maester Payne, LaDonna, my mama, Eli Knight, and CharlieInWesteros, and all of their channels can be found in the description below. Today we're going to be discussing the episode called The Mountain and the Viper. That's episode 8 of season 4, and it was quite intense. I think, Charlie, would you like to do us the honor? Hosting as you
of recapping? Absolutely, I would be glad to.
Wonderful.
Shall I go ahead and start?
Let's do it.
Or do we need to introduce ourselves? Okay.
Feel free if y'all want.
So before we get into discussing the episode as a whole, I think we should just quickly talk about the title, maybe, The Viper and the Mountain. I don't think there's much.
Got the video open. It was me.
Mine's closed.
Go ahead.
Good job. So the episode title was then The Viper, and although I don't think this episode title needs much explanation or any intense digging, maybe a small thought I had on it was I thought it was interesting where, I guess I thought it was interesting in the way in which Oberyn Martell demands justice from the Mountain. How he repeats his lines: "You murdered her. You." So on and so forth. I forget what the lines were. But when Daenerys and Jorah Mormont are having their discussion about his betrayal, she says lines in a similar way. She says to him, "You sold my secrets to the man who killed my father and stole my brother's throne. You betrayed me from the first." So the same kind of accusatory vein. So I kind of saw maybe a little comparison there with Daenerys and Jorah, where, Jorah Mormont is the mountain, Mormont Mountain. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching it, and Daenerys is kind of like the Viper in this context. Yeah. Daenerys is a bit like the Viper in this case, Dragon Lake and all that. What? Sorry,
I didn't mean to interrupt. I looked at Mormont as, if you're going to do the Mountain Viper sort of thing, Barristan was the snake in that case, Mormont was the mountain, and more like Dany's rock, he does have her best interests in mind. That was my only comparison, and that's only if you want to look that way for it. So.
That's a good point, and it was called The Mountain and the Viper, and it was kind of like Jorah was. I mean, if he is a spy, he's the Viper in the grass, and Dany's standing up on that pyramid-shaped thing like she's on a mountain. That's not.
I switched it though. I think Barristan's the snake in this aspect, and Mormont's actually Dany's rock, her mountain.
I kind of saw Daenerys as. I thought Daenerys was more of the Viper in this case, the dragon, snake-like, lizardy. I don't know.
I thought she was.
And her demand, and the way she was also pressing, Jorah Mormont in order to answer for his crimes in a similar way that the Mountain was,
almost
interrogated by Oberyn Martell. Yeah. So that's all.
I also think that title is going to play in at the end game.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, as a random thing, are we doing everything that happened in that area, or is that just what you wanted to start off with?
Just the title. Okay,
the title.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was confused. But I definitely think the title needs to be considered in a grander scope than I had been.
Usually I would have more insights, but in this case, I don't know. I thought it was pretty clear it was referring to the last location/scene of the episode. So, alrighty, I guess we could get in.
If you wanted to, you could look at the mountain as an obstacle that needs to be overcome somehow.
That's a good point.
All I would say about that.
Agreed. All right, so I guess we could discuss events at the Wall/Molestown.
All right.
You guys are all agreed. So the episode starts off with Gilly. She has a tense conversation with one of the prostitutes at Molestown before the village is attacked by Styr and Tormund Giantsbane and Ygritte and their whole little force south of the Wall. Gilly is discovered by Ygritte, but is spared by her when Ygritte notices the infant at her side. Later on, news of the attack reaches the Wall, where Sam laments his decision to leave Gilly there and ponders whether she is still alive. And his fellow men of the Night's Watch kind of give him some encouraging words. They kind of tell him that she's most likely alive. I mean, she survived Craster, she survived the White Walkers, she survived so much so far, so I'm they're fairly confident that she made it out alive, which is, I guess, nice. And of course, we know that she made it out, or at least we can assume she made it out alive anyway. At least we can expect that. Just to go over a few thoughts I had on that scene first, if you guys will allow me.
Do it.
I thought it was interesting that the prostitute at the beginning of the scene was burping out the bear in the Maiden Fair, that song. And I wasn't sure if there's any significance to that in the context of this episode per se. I couldn't really, well, A, I didn't really think too much into it, and B, I didn't really think of anything deeper, but maybe there was a symbolism there as to why she was singing that song or burping that song as opposed to burping The Reigns of Castamere. So
Could
just
it be
throwing it out
Danny
there.
and Jorah?
Can I add into that?
Oh, that's true.
That is true.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what did you guys just say?
I just said,
They
could
were
it be
saying-
Danny and Jorah? Sorry.
Oh, I looked at that, her burping out the two songs as they're having this guessing game, trying to figure out, as far
What
as
the
we
song
know,
was.
viewers, they're the only two songs in Westeros that we ever hear.
In the TV show.
It's either one or the other, and sitting there trying to guess which one it is. Obviously, there's more theoretically in that world, but
Well,
as us listening, we only get the two ever.
yeah, but Jorah Mormont is from Bear Island, and I do think that's an appropriate comment about
Agreed.
Bear, and the Maiden Fair would be Danny.
Mhm.
I also think you might argue that the bears that are coming to take over the town, Gilly may be the Maiden Fair who's safe. I don't know. Oh, by the way, that was Ray Winstone's daughter, I believe, who was burping that out, and I love
Really?
Winstone.
She was in the original
That,
Harry Potter movies. That actress.
Law and Order guy?
No, Ray Winstone is the guy who voiced Beowulf, famous English actor. Just actually passed away recently, didn't he?
No, I would be very upset.
I think I may be wrong there, but I think so, maybe.
I think
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Talk-
Sorry.
Just, if we could just go back into discussing the episode and the scene. Just a couple more thoughts I had. Is I love that Gilly also showed no fear towards the prostitute, like she's been through much worse than that annoying woman. The last thing I thought about the scene that was interesting was that it was kind of cool that Ygritte chose to spare Gilly and her child, yet she did earlier, a few episodes ago, kill a little boy's parents in the village. So I was kind of intrigued by as to what prompted this. I mean, I wonder maybe if she could tell Gilly was a wildling. I wonder if perhaps there was some kind of symbolism there of a certain, wildling woman later on and her son being protected by Men of the Night's Watch and having that son sent away with Sam. Or, maybe it's foreshadowing something greater. So,
Well, I think there's
any other thoughts?
a key thing. The good people.
You got to hold up and wait till people finish the thought. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just saying it's talking over people. What were you saying?
Sorry, I thought he had. Excuse me. I just think it's a
No
central
worries.
thing. The good people don't kill children.
Good point.
Thank
Fair
you.
Very
point.
true.
Even in Danny's scene, when she really gets pissed off at Jorah, is when she said, "And you still kept reporting on me when you found out I was pregnant." That's the thing that really pissed her off.
I think first of all, I think whenever anything good happens, the only way they feel they can get away with it is something fucking horrible happens in the same episode. So we get a little baby saved and Gilly saved, but we get Oberyn fucking destroyed. Because they could get away with it, it allowed one last time, and I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I thought Gilly was going to get killed this episode only because we got to see her. I mean, Ygritte get killed this episode because we got to see her again. But it's undoubtable in my mind it happens next episode because that's the battle at the wall. But if Ygritte gets killed in the next episode, this was their last chance to show Ygritte and why she was why we should pull for her, why she wasn't just some stupid little girl that was interested in Jon. This was their
A sympathetic toward her.
right.
But I still say there's the overarching thing of children not being killed. Same reason the White Walkers are taking those kids and saving. There's something about that. I love the blood coming down from the ceiling.
I was going to mention that after Ygritte goes shh and runs away, you can see blood seeping down from the ceiling. It was a nice little touch.
And, yeah, That's our. I never even thought of it. I noticed the blood coming down, but that's how we realize that they're underground, right?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Think about
Yeah.
that either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the way I took it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about it either until you guys. I noticed it, but I didn't pick up on it.
Does she look like in a potato cellar or something?
Possibly.
The only thing I would add to this scene, the only thing that I thought was a little odd, was it just seemed like it seemed very weird for the prostitute to just be, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm gonna beat the shit out of your baby. You know, that was just a really weird transition for no reason for her to just turn on Gilly. You know, like she was ecstatic and happy, and then to just walk into another room and say, I'm gonna beat up your little baby. That just seemed very weird. Funny, actually.
She was also drunk, though, Eli. You have to remember that.
Well, but who gets drunk and says, I'm gonna go beat up some babies? You know.
If you're an abusive person, I guess. I mean, you know, she's quite a
Somebody who should
woman.
stop drinking is the answer to your question.
What James said.
Also, an interesting allusion when it starts to insult the. I don't know if it was a Night's Watch guy or just a regular customer, but when she calls him saying that his dick was so little, she thought he was a eunuch. And then we basically cut to Grey Worm and Missandei. So she's sexualizing this aspect, but when we get Grey Worm and Missandei, there's a little bit more than just sexual there. It's more of a interpersonal relationship. I thought it was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If I can add one more thing about the prostitute scene, there were no children in that prostitution, the brothel there, whereas at King's Landing there were children of the prostitutes everywhere. They were bathing them and they were taking care of them. They had babies in their arms. Everybody got upset when Janice Lint came in and killed the baby, whereas there are no babies there. It's like those women have no time, no money, nothing to take care of kids. They got rid of them with Tansy T. Period. Children have no place in that world. And I think that played in perfectly with her saying, keep that damn baby shut up, or I'll...
And I think you meant this too, but it wasn't specifically said. It's a symbol, this is going too in deep, I think, but it's a symbol to that prostitute of what she can never have.
Could be.
Because she's not the pimp. We already met the pimp in the other episode with the hurt on her. But I wanted to add that girl is Ray Winstone's daughter, and Ray Winstone's other daughter is engaged to Alfie Allen, who plays Theon.
Really?
So
just on that, to add to Maester Payne, I've noticed in this episode particularly that there are a lot of mentions about eunuchs and the way that they are and the way that we perceive them.
Yeah, and we were talking in previous videos exactly about what they had taken, the pillars and the stone. I think Maester Payne used that exact phrase, the pillars and
yes.
the stone. And it turns out we don't know, at least in the TV show yet. Yeah, I think it's irrelevant, but go ahead, Maester Payne.
I don't know if it meant anything, but the very first shot you get, I believe, is these two bells that look very possibly testicle-like hanging up over the thing. I don't know.
And then you get a door, and then you get a double door opening to a whorehouse. You have a strong point there, Maester Payne. Two bells, and then opens up to a whorehouse.
Yeah, and those sets are definitely on purpose.
But I think they did a great job with the whorehouse. I wanted to say, Eli, that I approve of her dissing the baby. I felt like it made sense. The part I was a little sketchy about was Egret letting the baby live. I understand why she did it, but when she did it, I felt like... But then later when we watch Oberyn get killed, that's why I said it a second ago, I felt like, okay, to the regular TV viewer...
Especially if they were going to try to keep her sympathetic, I just think they should have skipped the scene right before that, literally seconds before, where she slits the throat of a random woman. You know, you could have just left that little bit out and then kept her a little more sympathetic, but she seemed very bloodthirsty toward anyone, and then the quick change. I kind of agree with you there.
That woman could have had a dagger under her skirt, you know.
Very true.
By the way, allow me to say this. I find it very interesting, and I meant to say this several videos back, how they don't really tell you what happened in the book, but they give you the backstory a different way, and I think that's brilliant.
About what?
Well, like, we don't really see Moletown taking over like this in the books. It's implied, but I like the way they're filling in stories that's not really quite in the book, and we're still getting the overarching idea. I think it's brilliant.
That's true.
Like Theon's torture, for example. I think that was really cool, too.
I don't know how they would have gotten. In fact, I don't know how they would have gotten away with that without showing it.
Agreed.
How they would have done it.
I think Tony actually did a video on that, how he figured the Theon aspect could have went, which wasn't too bad. It was pretty good. Made sense.
So.
Just to address the last part of this scene when they have a skip towards the events of the Wall, I thought it was kind of funny when one of the men of the Night's Watch says, quote, "When I'm done in this world, I don't want to come back."
That was it.
Kind of parallels the very last line that Ilaria Sand says to her to Oberyn, "Don't leave me alone in this world."
And he says, "Never." You can't make that promise. What kind of promise is that? One of you is going to be left alone unless you die at the same time. But I wanted to mention that because I think that's a play on Jaime and Cersei, because I think it's possible that if they simultaneously die, they will never leave each other alone in it. And to add to what you said about Dolores Ed, that is by far a reference to what we're ultimately... It's a reference to, in my opinion, Carl Clubfoot. It is most certainly a reference to people, when they die, being able to be resurrected, if not merely because they moved their mind from one person to another. But if Carl Clubfoot, when he died, put his mind in that girl, that scene is a direct reference to it. When I die, I hope I don't come back. Well, Carl Clubfoot, if he did, put his mind into that girl's head. He died and came back.
I think that
We'll find out if he does come back.
Go ahead, LaDonna.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't disagree with James, but it's not. Let's just move on.
I was looking at it as a little bit of foreshadowing towards Lady Stoneheart.
That's
true. Actually, the Night's Watch saying you've been gone for so long, but then you guys came back.
Good point.
Somebody's been missing for so long, and we're about to get her. I hope so. We're going to get her back.
Good point.
I thought it was kind of a nod towards the fact that whenever we see a character who's seemingly in very serious danger, they apparently don't seem to die, whereas characters who we kind of assume as an audience are going to be fine in that episode or are going to, come out victorious, i.e. Oberyn and Martell, are the ones who end up dying.
I think that's a confirmation bias. I think it's because those are the one, or that's like the antithesis of confirmation bias. You notice the ones that don't agree with what your presupposition is. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, period.
It's the fact that, these characters are so miserable and they're sick of living, yet they're the ones who keep on living, whereas Oberyn and Ilaria talk about, I'll win my battle here, no big deal.
It reminds me of a saying my mom told us our entire lives. Life's a bitch, and then you die.
Yeah. I love it.
Great mother I am.
I don't think any of us would ever say that you weren't.
Oh.
You weren't there.
It kind of reminds me of Arya's line a couple episodes ago, actually. It reminds me of Arya's line a few episodes ago. After life there is, or what did she say again? Nothing is nothing. Isn't nothing. Nothing is just nothing, or something like that.
Nothing isn't better or worse than anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Maester Payne? I'm sure it was.
Oh, I was just saying LaDonna is our group matriarch.
They call me that in the bar here too. I'm now the legal matriarch. God, what a title.
Bar as in legal, not bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mind wandered there.
It was just a lush who everyone loves at the bar, like Cheers.
Here comes Mama.
Yeah. Hello, Norm.
LaDonna.
Hey, Norm.
Any other thoughts on these
only
events?
You can throw Benji into that mix too, being away and coming back.
I have an interesting. How do y'all think that? Because this never happens in the book. Gilly's sent away in a different way. But how is Gilly going to be reintroduced? Is it going to be before the Wildlings next season, or is it going to be after the Wildlings next season? Are we going to get Gilly? The last episode this season is called Children. I could see Gilly coming back with a kid to the wall, but it's possible it'll happen next season. How do y'all see? What do you see this justification for that? Let me. I know I'm answering my own question here. The reason I bring that up is because if all the cities around have been raided, it makes sense for them to come to the wall for sanctuary. It's not something that's been done in the past, but it would make sense. And that would be a precursor to them allowing the wildlings through next season. So I could see that happening in the last episode. Gilly with the kid and a couple of the wildlings. I mean, we got the little kid there who was told to go to the wall and say that I'm going to eat you. Is that your mother? Is that your father? I'm going to eat your mom and your dad. I could see that happening.
I just don't think there's any way for her to come back except to lay low until the wildlings end up being let in. And then she comes in.
Maybe
I tend to
you get a
agree with
play
James. I
on-
think
Oh, I was just gonna real quick. Maybe you get a play on. That's why they took note to mention that she knew the call. Maybe she's at the wall and hears the call of the wildlings coming in. You know, that type of thing. Maybe she plays a little better part or something. But I kind of with LaDonna on the fact that I think she kind of disappears for a while.
I'm more with James on this one. I think after the battle at the wall gets resolved, I think a lot of these quote-unquote refugees from the lands that were ravaged south of the wall are going to, or at least immediately south of the wall, are going to head towards Castle Black. So I think we're going to see her in episode 10. We're going to have a really quick scene with her being reunited with Sam and maybe a little kiss.
That makes
Sounds like Maester Payne's the one who gets to decide.
No, I agree with you guys. I think she'll be back before the end of the season. I just can't see them leaving her after they've already basically let us know that she's still alive. I don't think anybody's going to assume that she's died, so I think she'll show up this season.
Okay.
Judgment has been made 3-2.
Eli mentioned it. Yeah. Her noticing the call and the horror right before saying you should have stayed up with your own kind. Well, it's her own kind that went and killed everybody. So, and I also think that plays into the overlying theory of we are all of one kind in general, anyways. So,
I kind of like the idea of Gaiman helping her get in, like covering her as Gilly tries to get into the Castle Black. Remember Gaiman? He's going to be the little boy whose mother got killed.
yeah.
I kind of like him helping them in.
If Gilly comes in, more people are coming in. You're not going to hide a girl
I agree.
or a baby. And we've already had the conversation with Sam and Eamon about it. And I think that this is a perfect way for them to justify later the wildlings coming through, because right now it really doesn't click.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't have a clue.
Should we move on to the next location, folks?
Yes, we should definitely move on.
Alrighty. Well, since Maester Payne made a nice transition to tie in this scene, I think, with events across the Narrow Sea with Missandei.
We get John and Pip and Gren first.
Yeah, I brought that up.
Sorry,
Did you guys have thoughts on that?
I thought we were
no
talking
worries.
about that.
Sorry. I didn't hear it. I must not have been listening. My bad. If I can add one more thing, I love Gren and Pip and Ed. I love their dynamic. Pip just kind of sits there, and Gren's like, well, we get this and this and this, and Dolores is like, no, you're an idiot. That's not true. No, you're not making any sense. I also love the fact that Dolores Ed sticks up for Sam. They all kind of do. But this is all precursor to John being the leader, because these three have, every single one of them is different in their own way, and they have all come to love John. They hated John at the beginning. They were going to kill him, and they love John now.
By the way, it's Dolores, not Dolores. Dolores means sorrows. And I know that because I had a nun named Sister something Doler, which is sorrowful. So it's Dolores, not Dolores.
Fair
Learn
enough.
something every day.
Any last thoughts on events at the wall?
All I wanted to add.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right. So, like I said, Maester Payne made a nice transition to discussing things across the Narrow Sea with Missandei and Grey Worm. So, in the next sequence of the next sequence of events, we have Missandei, who catches Grey Worm watching her bathe, and although she seeks advice from Daenerys and desires a relationship with Grey Worm, Daenerys makes it clear that all Unsullied are made eunuchs at an early age. And there's a few other things that happen later on, but let's just, I guess, address this first occurrence, perhaps. So,
Charlie,
I love...
Can we get this out of the way? In the book, she's 8 years old, and in the books, the Unsullied do not have penises or balls. It's really clear.
Where?
Well, actually, I was actually just about to bring that up.
I mean, this is an absolute deviation from it, so whatever happens, we are absolutely completely speculating.
No, Mama, hold up. They still have not told us in the TV show whether they have their balls or their dick. So no, it's not a deviation until they tell us. And
Let me just...
second of all, where
One at a time, one at a time.
Where in the
Get him,
book
Charlie.
does it tell us?
Okay. Well, let me just answer like this quickly, because I was about to talk about that, actually, the fact that I think in this scene they kind of play off of the fact that many of us are disagreeing about what parts of the Unsullied are missing, and they kind of, in a way, not mock us, but I think they're like poking fun at us in a sense, because they have Daenerys and Missandei discussing to what extent they are eunuchs, which I thought was kind of funny. I think they're doing that intentionally to create that uncertainty. Now you guys can debate that specific aspect.
Well, we did have this whole discussion day one on the episode that never aired, so.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Exactly.
actually LaDonna did clarify that. So she said that it's plainly stated in the book, so that's now in my head. I'll remember that.
So now it's complete speculation as to what happens, but I will say this. I like the scene. I thought it was a great scene.
Agreed.
The only thing I would say about this scene is that I thought, just back to what kind of Maester Payne said earlier, or we had talked about earlier, and that's the eunuch mentions. And I thought maybe it could be a play on, especially since they lead into Dany and her actively asking about what he wants and what he's interested in. I thought it could be a play on what's a man's true motive, and because you would think someone with nothing down there, regardless, would not be interested in women, but then he still is. And we know from the books that the Unsullied are still interested in the affectionate aspect of women. And so I kind of saw that, or maybe a play on our perspective of how we think about people based on what we know about them.
I think you nailed it with that last comment, Eli, because even if you do cut off somebody's dick and balls, they're still going to want love. I mean, for the most part. They're going to want affection and likely sexual pleasure, because the brain takes over parts of the brain that your penis or whatever sexual organ you have get taken over. It's sort of, but there's still pain, and it's a weird thing. But you can still get sexual pleasure even after sexual organs are removed.
But there's also an innate pleasure in pleasing somebody else, and that is a selfless kind of love. And if she's still a whole woman, he could derive great pleasure in making her happy, and I think that's enough. Sometimes.
Very true. And we've seen from the Unsullied that they like that aspect of things, or at least from the whorehouse stories and things you hear, that they will go actively pay and search out just the affection side of things.
Look
I think
Podrick certainly made a lot of women happy.
I think, yeah, I agree with you.
I think there are two other
Maester
reasons.
Payne, by the way.
It runs in the family.
I think there are two other reasons, though, why they introduced this scene or made some changes to the TV show from the books, however. I think, for one thing, they are kind of replacing the intense, as I call it, Daenerys romance we have in the books with a different one. That is the one between, or a potential one between Missandei and Grey Worm. They have a different showmance completely from the book, from what's going on in the books in Marine. But, and if I can open a slight can of worms here, and this did come up in our Q&A video with in responding to Tony Teflon a few minutes ago, was the fact that when somebody tries to poison Daenerys during the reopening of the gladiator tournaments or whatever, we have somebody we were talking about who might take Strong Belwas's place. And to be honest, I think the scenes with Grey Worm and Missandei are totally foreshadowing a death on Grey Worm's part, because we know in the books she loses her brother, and that's that's her big loss. But of course, in this show, we don't know if she even has a brother. At least it's implied that she doesn't have any other family members except for well, I guess her adoptive family like Daenerys and Grey Worm. So I think Grey Worm and her are going to play, they're going to play up that romance in the TV show, and then they're going to do what they always do in Game of Thrones and cut that short. So that's my intuition on that.
You have a strong point. I think you may be right that we'll watch Grey Worm die. If that happens, though, in my opinion, that cannot happen unless we're going to not have the Unsullied come to Westeros, because he's the leader, and we don't have a single other Unsullied referenced in the show. And I'm of the opinion the Unsullied aren't coming to Westeros currently. So
it's very possible.
I think you nailed that. That's very possible.
I completely agree.
I love. Yeah.
I tried holding it out when you said it in the other video. I was like, I know where you're going with this. Grey Worm is doomed. I know it.
Yeah. It was hard for me not to break that piece of information.
Go ahead.
No thoughts. I was going to ask if you guys had any other thoughts on Grey Worm, Missandei, and Daenerys and all those interactions.
I have a few that are very, very minor. I particularly like the fact that they were open and vulnerable to each other, which very few people allow themselves to be in this epic. And I also like the fact that there was water imagery and a cleansing. I think we're going to see that kind of water later with some relationships. So.
I don't think it was a coincidence that it was a bathing scene.
I don't either.
Especially with the way the baths are talked about from the Martells and things like that.
I agree, and I think. Go ahead, LaDonna.
Just to add this, MP, the bathing scene with Jaime was a very vulnerable, open, intimate scene, and I think that the maiden pool stuff that's going to happen later, I truly believe there's going to be something that happens at maiden pool. We also have the salt pans and the quiet isle being a cleansing area. The water is important.
It could be It could be George's play on baptism, because it does seem to recur a lot. Just generally,
It happened with Theon.
Actually, I don't know if you were saying this, LaDonna, and I got interrupted, I'm afraid, but when you mentioned the stuff about bathing in the river with Missandei and Grey Worm, I was reminded of the whole bath analogy as a place of sexual energy.
Very good.
And it comes up again later on, actually, when Ramsay makes a comment to Reek later on about how he needs a bath. And we'll get into that, but
that actually isn't a book reader, but my brother-in-law mentioned to me that he read online, but Reek, the original Reek, not Theon, but Reek, was forced to take a lot of baths because he stunk.
It's not horrible.
Yeah, growing up.
So I don't know if that's part of what this play is about, the baths and stuff like that, but it's just something that I had completely forgotten and now remember.
That's a good
point.
He actually wore Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that he actively wore perfumes and things because he had like a disorder.
Yeah.
The original Reek, yeah.
I think you're probably honest.
Missandei and Grey Worm, sorry, Charlie. The part where he goes to apologize for her and he says, "I'm sorry, I was staring at you," and she says, "I'm glad you saw me." I think that's sort of like what LaDonna said about last week with the Hound without any armor. He saw Missandei bare. I don't think it's completely sexual. There's definitely sexual there, but I think it's also mental, and she's glad that he looks at her as something more than just a sexual object.
I think you nailed that one. I think that's exactly what it is, and him too, to know that
guys,
he feel that way.
I don't mean to interrupt. Hopefully I don't, but my electricity's getting all fuzzy. I hope my thing doesn't cut out. If it does, I apologize. I have lights flickering in my room right now. It's weird.
Kyburn just turned on the electric.
Or there's
or he says, "Live." But I agree with you, Maester Payne, and I would push it so far as to say that's kind of both of them. I wrote down awkward, and what I meant by that is neither of them have any experience in this, at least in the TV show. Missandei, if anything, has only been a sexual object, and the alternative would be that Grey Worm has been anything but a sexual object, and even though they're portrayed as older, they're really basically both an 8-year-old, whatever age, little kids, not knowing what these feelings are.
Just stumbling into this.
Yeah. Well, the girl goes behind a tree to pee in the woods, and the guy sees her and can't help but stare, and she runs off and hides, and then he's like, I'm sorry, and she's like,
yeah, but I'm going to throw...
feel good, and kind of made me feel good. And he's like, that made me feel good too. But I agree, it has more to do with the emotions than it does sexuality. I think sexuality may play into it. But.
Well, yeah, I think there's definitely a sexual undertone, but it's got to be so much more than that between the two of them. Sorry, LaDonna, go ahead.
And Mom, I looked up, it appears as if there is a quote in the book where it says, if I can read this, nope, because I lost it, but it says in the book that they supposedly had everything taken.
Yeah, I think so too. I remember.
Mom, I can't, we're losing, I'm having trouble hearing you.
It's Eli moving around because his electricity's going out. I also think it's kind of ridiculous of us not to think that Missandei has been raped 1,000,000 times.
That's a very good point.
It's definitely possible.
The fact that she is still feeling a little awkward with him is because she's vulnerable in an intimate sense. They really like each other and respect each other.
There was one other thing that I guess bears mentioning. It's something that I never thought of myself, but 1998 Champions, I don't know if you guys know him from, or her from comments, sorry. But she's gone on to say how everything that happens leads to where we are now, which is essentially what Grey Worm says to Missandei. If I was not there becoming unsullied, I would not have been here for this, I would not have been here for this, I wouldn't be here for that. So, shout out to 1998.
Nailed it. And that's I mean, without talking out of turn, because we don't fucking know, but in my opinion, Martin has said that he's, what does he call it, a gardener, not an architect. He knows how it's all going to end. He has a major character arcs for all of these people that are going to all play in the end. And he also kind of knew where it was going to begin before he started. And there's certain points along the way that he knew had to happen. But the development of all these characters is solely so that at the end, all the emotions he's put on us, all the situations he's put us in, are all relevant at the end. And that's in the same episode where that's said, we get Oberyn being killed, which a lot of people, a lot of the videos I've watched of TV show watchers who have not read the book said this was worse than the Red Wedding.
Well, going back to what MP was saying, though, all of us are a product of the experiences, good or bad, that have been thrust upon us.
Absolutely.
That's what makes who we are. And you kind of draw on what you've been given, and you hope you take away the best from it. And I think that's MP. Is that not what you were saying?
No, I think that. Well, I agree completely. That's exactly where I thought MP was going, and I think that plays back into my theory that that's why the Starks will end up being bad guys in the end. That look at how their life experiences will shape them, and they have had nothing but the worst experiences, top to bottom.
I'm not sure. You know what? I have to throw this in. I know it's complete crack pottery. But I'm not sure that Ned Stark isn't completely related directly to the Night's King, and that maybe the good brother got thrown out.
I'm going to say something.
That's my theory you stole.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I may have said this to you guys before. I may not have, but there's a video of all the times winter is coming is said on the show. And it's always very solid. Winter is coming, winter is coming. But if you watch Ned and Benjen at the Feast at Winterfell, when they say winter is coming to each other, they giggle. They laugh.
Well, and that is a beautiful scene, Maester Payne, because it says so much. Benjen disappears and then is going to come back later one way or another. So Benjen knows, that actor knows something, because they were like, listen, we're going to cast you, but you got to trust us. We're going to bring you back 4 years later after you haven't been in a single episode. Yeah. So Sean Bean they were going to kill anyway, so they could tell him whatever the hell they wanted to, and they needed to. Sean Bean knew who Jon Snow's parents were when they filmed those scenes, in my opinion. But in that scene, I agree with you, Maester Payne. It's almost said in a joking manner, but Ned doesn't know about the others because he's not sure if they're real. But he's had this guy he's killed, and he says there are others, and Benjen doesn't say there aren't or there are. But he says people are direwolves below the wall. I mean, you might be a hand of a king. Stranger things have happened, and it's like they're not allowed to talk about it. And then they say winter is coming, and they kind of like, haha, because it's always coming, and it comes in a million different forms.
I kind of look at it like Ned didn't really want a direwolf below the wall. Like maybe that's not something that a bad person would want to have a spirit animal. And also, Ned said, "I learned how to die a long time ago." I mean, is he dead? And also, I know this is crackpottery. I'm just going to throw it out. And also the fact there are some allusions in the book about him not having to wear blankets at night when it's freezing cold. It starts to make me wonder if maybe we put our bid on the wrong horse.
We also know that something happened at the Tower of Joy that we haven't had explained, and it could easily be that Ned was killed and Helen Reed brought him back. I know that sounds crazy, but it's not. You saw those scars on Ned's chest in the first season. It's not.
As much as I'm enjoying the discussion here, and I'm actually quite intrigued by it, I think we should go back to the topic at hand, which is far away from the north and the Tower of Joy.
Okay.
Not to be the...
You're the moderator.
What?
Do your job, Charlie.
Scars? What scars? I don't know what you're talking about.
If I can add something to that before we finish, I know, Charlie, you're trying to move on. Just real, since we're going to try to stay on topic.
It's all good. Go for it. No worries.
Sierran on the comment noted that there has been an interview recently with the lady in the person in charge of getting Martin to produce these documents. She's the one who the 168 pages were handed to last year, February. So she's the one who has an idea of what's the progress going on. She expects there to be a final draft for editing of Winds of Winter sometime any day now. She's expecting it. She also said it's. What'd you say, Mom?
Yay!
She also said it's possible that there could be 8 books, but Martin came out recently and said that my plan is still 7, but until I'm halfway done with their 7th book, I don't know. So it's definitely possible. There's also a possibility that they will. Martin's of the opinion in the same interview I just mentioned that 7 seasons is not going to be enough. But he's expressed the idea of doing movies at the end, which was not his idea, but the showrunners aren't too fond of the idea. I also wanted to say that and the reason I bring this up is because there was a mention of winter is coming being repeated many times. This editor pleaded with Martin to take out the phrase "words are wind" in the most recent book. It might have been Feast for Crows, but either Feast for Crows or Dance with Dragons, because it's in there 14 times. And he refused. She said, "Bring it down," but he said, "No, don't take out one of them." So words are wind is extremely important. Don't know what it means, but it's extremely important. Thank you for letting me go off, Charlie.
No worries. Words are wind, winds of winter.
There you
Maybe
go.
we'll find out next book. Anyway, are there any other thoughts relating to specifically Missandei and Grey Worm and Daenerys' conversation with Missandei? Nope. So I guess we can continue on with the bigger, crazier aspect of this scene.
I do have one more thing to it.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Go. No worries.
I like the idea of Missandei saying he was interested. And Dany's like, "What?" And she says, "I believe he was interested. For personal opinion, but that would be the way it would go, wouldn't it? Grey Worm would have interest, but not know what it was. And Missandei would recognize it, being the female who that happens in real life. The females notice the men looking at them way before any men do, in general. And they would be the ones to know when the 14-year-old kid's staring at them that means he's interested, even before the 14, 13-year-old boy would know."
Well,
I don't know why, but I can't stop looking. I also should probably sit down.
His name is Grey Worm.
Just throwing that out there.
Lordy, lordy, lord.
Not a bad point.
It's It's a bit ironic. Go
I
ahead.
had to.
You have to go there. LaDonna?
I didn't realize until I rewatched that scene that she's surrounded by all the Unsullied bathing. There are no women there. It's all men.
That's not true.
Yes,
No,
Grey-
there are women next door.
Grey Worm is surrounded by men. Missandei is surrounded by women. There are no men around Missandei.
Yeah, they're very separated.
Believe me, Mom, we noticed the boobies.
Yes, we
They're
did not
separated.
miss that scene.
They are separated, but they're interestingly close to each other, these two groups. I'm just saying.
Just
Yeah, we're definitely within
Wherever they are, I want to bathe there because that was awesome. Not because of the boobies, but because it was cool. It was a cool place to bathe.
I felt like that actress had to dread coming into work that day. Because she knew a year and a half ago when she was cast that, oh, really? I mean, at this point, why am I showing my boobies?
She's
Really?
the token nudist for Daenerys, who's no longer trying to be naked.
I did not expect to see Missandei nude ever, and thank you.
Yeah, same thing. I didn't think we'd ever see it.
Beautiful girl. Do y'all know
Alrighty.
one person who has a no nudity clause in their contract? The one female who has a no nudity clause.
Daenerys, right?
Sean Bean.
No, Daenerys has been
She
naked
did,
times.
but no. But didn't she say she did not want to be naked anymore?
She
Yeah.
said that she would prefer not. One of the actresses supposedly said they would prefer not to be
Lena Headey?
that way, but it's not in the contract.
Sean Bean. It was Sean Bean.
It's
No, actress.
Sick of being butt naked all the time. Battered all
Oh,
over the
Catelyn.
place.
it's
I
cat.
know that.
All right, now that we got sidetracked again.
All right, let's go back on topic, folks. So I'm going to jump into the next scene, or the next part of the scene. So later on, Sir Barristan receives a letter sealed with the hand of the king's seal. He gives it to Sir Jorah, explaining that it is a royal pardon signed by Robert Baratheon in exchange for spying on Daenerys. Jorah admits that he was spying on her, and she orders him to leave Meereen and never to return. Now, I have a few thoughts on this, I guess. For one thing, I always thought, and I think it's because of the books, I always thought Sir Barristan knew that Jorah Mormont had acted as a spy. So that was kind of a bit of a shocker for me when we find out that Barristan Selmy did not know, actually, that he was a spy. Barristan also delivers an interesting line to Jorah Mormont when he confronts him. He says, "You'll never be alone with her again." Barristan says this to Sir Jorah, so I don't know if that's meant as a foreshadowing to the fact that maybe they'll never be reunited, or perhaps, if she ends up dying in the series, maybe her last moment will be with Sir Jorah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stretching that, but I thought that was quite an interesting line. Again, I mentioned the whole parallel between Daenerys' line of, "You sold my secrets to the man who killed my father and stole my brother's throne. You betrayed me. You betrayed me from the first." Again, the accusatory statements that are made in this scene very much contrast, I think, with Oberyn's statements towards the Mountain later on. Obviously, this scene was a bit frustrating for me because even though I know this happens in the books where Daenerys sends Jorah away, it did come across as a little, maybe not stupid or silly, but it did come across, I guess a little dumb, considering she did know that he changed his ways. He did protect her in the end, and he is very obviously acting in her best interests. So it is, in a similar way to Shay, I guess, it is a bit frustrating to see her, go against him so openly, or at least so openly dismiss him without a second's thought. Again, I think, this feeds into the fact that her dragons are not around. She's not behaving true to herself. She's trying to play up her rulership or her leadership role rather than embrace her role as a mother of dragons. So those are my thoughts on that specific scene.
One little thing I would throw in just real quick, and then actually I have a question for you guys specifically about this scene, is, and I know you don't want to hear this, Charlie, but I did notice that she said, "You took my brother's throne, not mine," which kind of just let me think in my mind she has no intentions on going back to Westeros. But that was just real quick. My only question to you guys was, because I really don't have an answer, is who do you think originally sent that letter, or who do you think sent that letter now? Because we know it came from Tywin, but it was not. It was obviously intercepted a long time ago, and someone specifically sent that at this moment on purpose.
I think
It's a completely fair question, and my mom and I were talking about this. I'm not 100% sure it wasn't sent by Robert a long time ago. I think that it makes a lot more sense for Tywin to have sent it. And if y'all remember, the last time we saw Tywin before this episode,
But just why would it disappear for a couple of years?
because they're trying to find Jorah and Dany, and I mean, but I don't know. I don't have a clue. But I have to say, Mama, hold up. I have to say that I feel like there was obviously a little bird. It was what are they called?
That's why
One of Varys' little birds.
Varys' little birds. It was obviously one of Varys' little birds, and we saw Varys and Tywin and that whole group with Oberyn talking about what they were going to do, and they wrote a letter, which I don't think it was this letter, but I definitely think that was meant to get our mind going about what might have resulted from that. But it had Robert Baratheon's signature on it, and Jorah says, I don't think it was forged, basically. So that is Robert Baratheon's signature. What did he get earlier? I thought he got something saying he was pardoned already.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. I agree, but LaDonna, you had a thought, though. I want to hear what you had to say first.
Well, I would say this. I mean, if everybody here thinks that there's only one thing sent out, there had to have been multiple of those sent out to make sure it got to Jorah. I mean,
agreed.
You got ships that are going to sink. You got many battles going on. Who the hell knows where Jorah? There were probably many, and Tywin probably had a copy of it and sent it. I mean, I don't think there's any question Tywin sent this.
No, I agree. I think, they might have kept an extra copy for record's sake, perhaps, and maybe that was sent. I think you're right, though, LaDonna. They would have had to send a few to make sure it got into Jorah's hands in the first place.
I just thought it was very purposeful that they mentioned that it was by Robert Baratheon and it wasn't forged, but that should have been years ago. And that should just, while they don't tell us anything, I agree with you, James. I think that's why it was a little kid who handed it. That's what I was alluding to, is I think Varys is the one who's been holding on to that letter for a long time.
Which makes
I agree, Eli.
Makes me go back to him wanting Dany dead. That there's some situation where he wants Dany dead.
I think he wants Aegon dead too, but that's just me.
LaDonna?
Varys seems to always...
Go ahead, Maester Payne.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, LaDonna.
No, go ahead.
Maester Payne.
Who's going now? Oh.
You.
Shit, I forgot where I was. Varys always seems to actually follow the rule of the realm, so although he said those birds have already flown, he might have brought that letter back, held on to it. Now, I believe Tywin sent this letter to Barristan. I think that's who he was writing to. And I think Varys just slipped it in. Put two letters there.
You think Tywin wrote a letter directly to Barristan?
Absolutely. I think that's why the kid he asked for Barristan. Like, you get the kid earlier on asking Jorah the Andal, gives Jorah the thing. This time he's asking for Barristan Selmy, gives Barristan the letter.
Well,
like,
if I were
he's
Barristan,
supposed to have this letter.
If I were Dany and I heard that that's what happened, Barristan, you got a letter from Tywin with this in it, and you didn't tell me Tywin sent it, I'd feel like that was more of a betrayal.
Well, what
Absolutely. I've always said, and I might be wrong, you guys, but I think Barristan is no good for Dany. It said a long time ago, Robert Baratheon says that he's going to need to send a bold man to deal with Daenerys Targaryen. Obviously, Robert's dead, but I think that bold man foreshadows Barristan the Bold later on. And I think he's working for Varys. He stops off and meets with Illyrio way before he ever meets Dany. So I think Varys can get out of the city.
I'm not sure I agree with you, but
I'm going to be looking for that Varys thing. That's a new connection for my line.
Definitely is a cool connection. But here's the bigger question, folks. I mean, this obviously does not happen in the books. How do you feel about this change in terms of discovering Jorah's betrayal by Daenerys in the books or in the show versus the books? Do you think it was a good idea to change it this way?
I think it was perfectly done. I think this removes Jorah from this. I was saying that it's not Daario versus Jorah, it's Daario versus his Dar, and Jorah's out of this literally gets Jorah out of the picture, and we are not going to see Jorah again, in my opinion, until Tyrion meets up with him. And I cannot fucking wait for that. That is going to be awesome next season.
Now, Charlie, explain.
But if I could, I loved what you said about Barristan the Bold in that situation. Although I have to say that we get Barristan's perspective, and he does not seem to be against Dany at all.
And that's something that I was going to say. I could be way off if there's much Barristan aspects that I totally have forgotten. This came from reading Game of Thrones, I think, where it was actually mentioned, the bold thing, and that's what put it. I have never gotten far enough ahead in my reread to have Barristan refreshed in my head.
But we've had characters in their mind before, so I'm not saying you're wrong. Just stuff to think about. And a bold man to wield it, and him being Barristan the Bold, that seems like something Martin would not have overlooked.
I'm not buying. I think it is the real thing. Charlie, explain what you mean by the differences.
The differences between the books versus the show. Well, for one thing, Barristan does reveal that Jorah Mormont was, a betrayer, was a spy, but they find out differently. I mean, there's a letter being sent in this case, whereas in the books, the knowledge is already there, if I recall correct. Barristan Selmy already knows that Jorah was a spy. Exactly.
I feel like the issue they had presented with themselves was when we watched Barristan and Jorah talk, it's never actually said by Barristan that he thinks Jorah was a spy, but he certainly knows the interests Jorah may have. And I think that they set that up ambiguously intentionally because they weren't sure what they were going to do with it. But in this season, they certainly couldn't have gone with Barristan being like, hey, Dany, sorry I didn't tell you this earlier, but I'm pretty sure Jorah might be a spy, because then Dany's going to not trust either of them. And I think this was the only way they could have done it and have it still be Barristan and it be justified that Dany kicked him out. But honestly, I have to say that in the entire conversation, don't get me wrong, I fucking loved Jorah and Dany's acting in the scene, because we really don't get to see Jorah act like this very often. And Dany, Emilia Clarke can fucking act, and I was worried that it wasn't going to be as good as it has been. But she is only her staring off into the distance like, I can't fucking believe what I'm hearing. This is ridiculous. Now, all that in consideration, the whole time they're speaking, all I can think of is, Jorah, you're saying the wrong fucking things. If you would just tell her, you're right, I spy, but I didn't know what you were. Ever since I saved you from that wine, I have been on your side nonstop.
It wouldn't have mattered.
I disagree. I think Dany made it. It does not make sense to the regular TV viewer why Dany responded the way she did.
No, and I agree with you on that. But let me ask you all a couple of questions, okay? And I really want you to think about it before you answer. Number one, was there any point along the way that Jorah could have told her without worrying that he would be either discredited immediately or killed? Because initially when it happened, with that wine poisoner that he stopped, if he had told her then, Drogo would have killed him. No question. Then as time went on, it just wasn't the right time. And then, let me ask you this. If she didn't have Barristan and Daario there with her now, and she found out about it, would she have been so quick to dismiss him?
Good point. Very good point. Arguably, I think she would have kept him if had it been any earlier than now.
I do too.
Yeah, she would have had no comfort zone, nothing to fall back on,
And I think
she's not the same woman she was.
And I think she's picked the wrong comfort zone.
I agree with you.
I said earlier that.
Wow, I'm surprised you agree with that, Charlie.
Go ahead.
No, I do. Go ahead, Maester Payne.
Oh, that's just why I said earlier that Jorah is actually her rock, her mountain.
Yeah.
Agreed.
He's the one that actually does have her best interests at heart.
The one who showed her that she could stand up Viserys, the one who's been with her the entire time, the one who was really the go-between between her and Drogo.
The Bear and the Maiden Fair?
Sure.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Well,
absolutely.
Somebody else made this point too, and I mean, if we have to go through it, I mean, was a dismissal right or wrong, and should she have executed him immediately as opposed to releasing him where he could have gone back to Westeros and given him all of her information? Or how about this? I mean, what about the fact that that she has made a rash decision in terms of her hurt over his ultimate potential? And somebody else made this analogy, and I thought it was really good. Let's say you guys are 5 or 10 years into a marriage that seems to be pretty damn solid, okay? But you find out that your wife cheated on you the night before you got married. Are you going to dump her?
Hell yes.
The night before we got married, yes, but you need to change that to the first month we were dating. If it was the first month you were dating that she cheated on you, and she's like, I'm telling you this just so I can be honest, and I've never cheated on you my entire life since.
She's still gone.
Eli!
Damn, unmerciful.
She's still gone.
I think let me just
Trust
go.
cannot be
Let me
rebuilt.
go.
Trust cannot be rebuilt.
May I go the philosophical route?
Go for it.
If you could know absolutely everything in the world and then conclude that it was better off, you were better off ignorant, only through having all that knowledge, how do you go back? Is it possible? Now, with the marriage instance, just to play with Eli, and I'm not knocking what you're saying or disagreeing with you or calling you a bullshit, but even if Eli were not telling the truth, even if Eli's or my conclusion is, you know what, I'd probably forgive it. We can't fucking say that because it seems to justify our significant other cheating on us. We can't. You have to draw the line in the sand, and it's only when it actually occurs that you can then question it. Does that make sense? I like that they both left.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't know how you actually react to a situation until you're put there. That type of thing.
Here's what I think about it. And I've done family law for a long, long time. I think that
Before there were families.
yeah, I think that if you have had a long-term relationship with somebody where things have really been solid, and you find out that they screwed up a long time ago, that you'd be foolish to throw that over. But it's hard to get the trust back again, and so I do agree with Thurston that they should never be alone. He would be under a microscope. I think it would be foolish to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's what I think.
Well, that's what she did, though, by kicking him out.
And she did. She did.
I have to add, though, in Westeros and Essos, this whole universe, we've been taught repeatedly that you cannot trust anybody. And, I mean, she knows that. I mean, she's had people betray her left and right. Karth, her fellow
Her brother.
everybody, her brother, Magister Illyrio, although she's not quite aware of that yet.
And she knows more coming. You know, other betrayals.
I did want to add one thing that I think was emphasized in the show that wasn't apparent. It's not immediately apparent. Barristan hands Jorah the letter. Jorah's like, "What's this?" Barristan says, "Fucking read it, motherfucker. It says you were a spy." And Barristan and Jorah's like, "Oh, fuck." And Barristan puts out his hand again. And Jorah has to make the decision over whether he's going to be like, I'm going to keep this, or give it back to Barristan. Because if he kept it, that would be damning to the nth degree that he's keeping it. But he has to give it back to Barristan. And Barristan takes it back. And then Jorah says, and Jorah thinks, now I've shown you that I'm at least reliable in this particular instance. And then Jorah says, give me a second to talk to her. And Barristan goes, you'll never get a chance to talk to her again. I couldn't help but be like, damn, Barristan, that shit's cold. You couldn't tell him that before you kept the thing? I just wanted to add that.
I thought the same thing. When Barristan handed him that thing, I thought, Jorah, eat it in little bits and swallow it right now.
Well, that's one thing that kind of showed me that just from seeing just show watchers' reviews about that specific scene is it's almost a consensus that people seem to think that Barristan was being the little bitch here, and whereas I just find that amazing in my mind, because in my mind he was being the most loyal out of way more than Jorah, and I just found it very fascinating that a lot of show watchers really looked at that and were like, why is Barristan being a little punk about it? You know,
I can totally
Wow,
see what
it just
you're saying.
shows you how perspective can be different, you know.
Barristan was right. Barristan was right. He went to him. He said, "I'm going to tell you like a man. Here it is."
Sort of. But it was like Mama. It was like me and Andrew, and one of us have something over the other one.
God
That's
help.
what it was when we were little. I know you did this. Okay, but let me explain why before you talk to Mom. Fuck no. Guess who's gonna be Mama's favorite tonight?
But if you also notice, Barristan did kind of throw it in there condescendingly that I'm not worried about you. You're found out, and I could kill you at any moment. So don't even think about it. You know, at this point, you're done. You know,
Not being refreshed on the Barristan chapter, sorry, Eli, I can totally see where the audience is coming from. I would have to totally refresh myself on all his aspects to even trust him whatsoever at the moment.
I agree. We know Barristan, again, I've said this a million times, and I still swear it despite what you said. I think Barristan is stand-up. I think he's a stand-up guy, and I think what he says you can take to the bank. I think he made the right decision.
He's bold.
He's bold.
I would also say that
All there is to it.
Jorah is Dany's beetle. She let him go.
That's a good point.
Like the image at the with
She didn't
Tyrion
squash
releasing
him.
the beetle.
She let him go.
Yeah.
Just somebody's asking online. There's 2 What the Flick reviews. There's 3 actually. There's one where they watch Oberyn's death. There's one where they review the whole show, and then there's one where they review Oberyn's death specifically. All right. Should we move on to the next scene?
Yeah.
I think we should.
I'm going to run for a cigarette.
Do it.
Go for it. So, the next scene we could discuss the other events in the north, where Ramsay Snow rehearses his plans with Reek, who will be masquerading as his former self, Theon Greyjoy. Theon rides a horse with a white flag, enters the Moat Cailin, and is received by the temporary commander there, Ralph Kenning. Theon gives Kenning the terms for their surrender, which Kenning intends to decline before he is killed by one of his own men, who assumes command and accepts the terms of surrender. And after the Ironborn open the moat's gates, Ramsay and his army flay and slaughter them all. And as a reward for retaking Moat Cailin, Lord Roose Bolton legitimizes Ramsay, using his new authority as Warden of the North to make Ramsay a true Bolton. The Boltons, their army, and Reek then depart to Winterfell. So where to begin on that scene in terms of my own thoughts? I've already made the comment, I think, in this group review about the image of the bath. And again, I think that this time when Ramsay tells Reek that he needs a bath, not only is it a reminder of the constant baths that Maester Payne reminded us about, where the original Reek had to always bathe, but I think in this context it kind of reaffirms a point LaDonna made a while ago, was that I think, and I agree, that Ramsay has clearly been raped, sexually abused, and will continuously be sexually abused and used over and over again by Ramsay. And I think this was reaffirmed actually another time when Theon/Reek was at Moat Cailin, and the first the first commander of the guard there basically said, "Oh, are you a dog, or are you a girl?" or made some comment calling him a girl, which of course, in terms of the negative, I guess, the negative sexual connotations there in terms of his potential role with Ramsay would kind of imply that Reek, because Reek obviously quivered when that line was said. He quivered at both lines.
I don't know. When he says, "Are you a woman?" he mumbles under his breath, "I don't know."
Oh, did he? I actually didn't even hear that.
He actually mumbles, "I don't know."
I remember him mumbling. I just did not quite catch what he said, but that's good that you caught that.
I didn't hear that, Eli. I did hear him go, "I'm Reek, I'm Reek, I'm Reek." He's mumbling, "I'm Reek, I'm Reek, I'm Reek." But what you said, Eli, I'll have to go back and watch it, but if you're right, that's profound.
I'm pretty sure. It's very under his breath, but I'm pretty sure he says, I'm not sure, I don't know, or something along those lines.
The bottom line, I think, though, is that it reaffirms LaDonna's thought. And go ahead, LaDonna.
All I can say is it was never in the books, but if anybody is going to do what he did to Reek, or to Theon, he'd do it all. He'd do everything.
Agreed.
Violate him in every way. The only thing I want to say about that scene, that I think Roose Bolton unknowingly just signed his own death warrant.
That's what I was thinking as well when I saw that. I was thinking, okay, now he's going to want.
I expect that reaction, and I think it's a fair reaction. I think that is not where that is absolutely not where Martin's going with it. I think that that is a fair response, but I think the point is not that Roose has set up Ramsay to kill Roose. It's that in the same way Roose has manipulated Theon, stripping Theon of his identity in every sense of the word.
He's gaining a new identity?
Roose has been doing this to Ramsay's entire life.
Yeah.
And, hold up, Mom. And Ramsay has been manipulated by his own father his whole life, and his father's constantly dangling the carrot. I've talked about this before. This is the exact same scene. In this scene, Roose gives Ramsay the name, and Ramsay's like, "Oh my God, I didn't." Whatever you say, Father. Whatever you say. This is exactly the fucking same as Ramsay giving Theon a bath. Exactly the same.
Oh, it's not. And the difference.
Hold up.
Hold on.
And the reason that they're doing this, in my opinion, and I don't have a clue, but it's obviously to show that it's cyclical, and it's a different way. Roose is doing it of Ramsay in a vampirical sort of way, like, you will do what I say, or you will suffer the consequences. It's not even that. It's just like,
these are not the droids you're looking for.
It's that, exactly. Eli, you nailed it. That's exactly what it is, only in a Sith way.
Yeah.
Sorry. But now here's the leap. I think that that's definitely true. I think that what I've just said is absolutely true. I think that the reason Martin is doing this is so that later we watch Roose kneel in front of his father, the Night's King, and say, "Whatever you want, Father, whatever you want." So that we see that it's just that the asshole you think exists is likely just behaving that way because there's some asshole who taught them to be that way. And it's endless. The bully at school is likely a bully because they're getting in trouble at home for shit they shouldn't be getting in trouble for. And I know that last part is fucking out there. But so was my theory on the Night's King, and that shit turned out true.
Well,
That's classic. That's classic.
I'm going to add this, and I'm going to go.
Go ahead, LaDonna.
I want to say this. I don't disagree with James insofar as when I say he signed his death warrant, I'm not saying Ramsay's going to kill him because that's too obvious. But what I'm saying, the difference is between Theon and Ramsay is that Ramsay has some freedom to do some stuff. And that's different. And I swear to you, I think Ramsay's going to turn a little bit good before he goes.
I agree with that 100%, and that's kind of the point. We're going to see that he's not that bad, and I think it'll be Sansa that makes him the good puppy.
I don't think but I think he's got an arc that's going to turn a little bit the other way.
There was something in this episode that Ramsay said, and I don't have it written down here what exactly it was, but it made me think that he might actually still be trying to actually play Roose himself.
I was going to wait until I agree with you, Maester Payne, completely. I think that Roose signed his death warrant when he legitimized Ramsay because that changed Ramsay's motives. Now I thought that that's where I was going.
I swear there was something that Ramsay had said, and I wish I could find it here, that just made me think that, oh shit, he's going to do something to Roose himself, or at least attempt to.
Or at least maybe go the other way as far as helping somebody else.
True, but I don't think he's considering that right now.
No. It's going to be a long time. We got 2 more books.
Next season, we're going to watch Roose take Reek away from Ramsay, and that's going to be the sign to us that Ramsay has no control over himself in front of Roose.
Or it will make Ramsay say, I'm going to do my own thing now.
I'm not going to go into the whole predictions in terms of how Ramsay will end up, whether it's a good guy or a bad guy. And I remember you mentioning this theory before, James, about, the Night's King being Roose's either metaphorical or literal father. But I will say, I think this scene, and I've made this comment before, I think the scene where Ramsay is legitimized kind of acts as, I guess, a counterpoint, or as a, I guess, maybe not a counterpoint, but I guess to act as a mirroring image to the relationship between Ned and Jon Snow. And I've made this comment in my own video review, but I think that, the fact that Roose and Ramsay have this disconnected emotional relationship, yet Ramsay is legitimized, and kept close to his father's side, whereas, Ned, who although does care for Jon, sends him away and ensures that he remains a Snow, is quite intriguing. But it does speak to the nature, I think, of Game of Thrones as a whole and A Song of Ice and Fire, with respect to how these seemingly evil characters, at least so far, tend to have good things happen to them in terms of their own credibility as characters, whereas the quote-unquote good or better characters like Jon Snow don't seem to have quite the same amount of luck, at least in terms of being legitimized. It's interesting because in this sense, I think, and it depends what, of course, the nature of Jon's parentage is, of course. It is a bit ironic because in this context, I think the true bastard, Ramsay, is the one being legitimized, whereas Jon Snow, depending on his parentage, depending on what was done before he was born, between the two parents,
Right.
Does speak to the fact that possibly he could not be a bastard. And I think that kind of adds that whole dilemma to these two very, very polarizing figures who are both Snows, yet in some ways, are meant to act in parallel or in tandem with each other.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go outside for just a second. I think it was, again, kind of maybe signing a death warrant in another way, that when Roose, what do you see? And Ramsay says a bunch of freaking land and trees, and he's going, you're an idiot. It's the North. You don't understand how important this is. Ramsay doesn't understand the importance of holding that huge tract of land. That was an important scene, I thought.
I agree. To me, that had to do with Ramsay being solely Roose's pet. I understand there could be a different interpretation that Ramsay's not looking in the long game, but to me, that was just an indication that Ramsay's nothing. He's a torturer, but he's nothing. To Roose, he means nothing. He's solely a means to an end. And don't forget, Roose, I'm telling you, the layers to this are ridiculous. Roose tells Ramsay, if you go get Moat Cailin, I'll dangle. He's dangling that carrot. If you go get Moat Cailin. So what does Ramsay do? Ramsay takes his own pet and tells his own pet to go get Moat Cailin. It's Roose is dangling that carrot to Ramsay. Ramsay's dangling the carrot to Theon. They're all fucking abusive.
Yeah, but now what? Okay, at any rate, I guess we'll just move on.
Well, I want to add a couple of things. You made a good point, Charlie, about Jon's legitimate, presuming for what I'm about to say, Jon's parents are Lyanna and Rhaegar. Were they married when Jon was born? And if they weren't, does it matter? And if they weren't, is it possible that Rhaegar's still alive, like we've talked about, Mance Rayder? Don't know, random. But if that's true, is Rhaegar going to legitimize Jon? Okay, so that's a side note, at least something to think about. The key to that is, does it matter if Jon's a bastard at the end of this? Can he rule?
Does it matter if anybody is?
Do what?
Does it matter if anybody's a bastard when this is over with?
And I think that Martin has to address that. Martin has to address bastards.
I think that's why we got the Tyrion to Jon line about own what you are, about the wearing the bastard, and I think it's also not a coincidence that he wields a bastard sword too.
Agreed.
No, definitely not a coincidence. It's the wrong sword for him. We all know that.
I did want to add that at the end of this scene,
that face was priceless.
At the end of the scene, we watch Ramsay and Roose leave for Winterfell. So they are going to Winterfell, which means that's next season. Ramsay getting married, Theon saying that is Arya Stark or whatever they end up doing with it, and Theon getting taken by Roose from the situation. And I wanted to add one last thing. I thought that what was going to happen, since we didn't really get something exactly like this in the book, I thought that Reek was going to entirely fake being the Theon he should have been. The Theon who the Ironborn he should have been. The Ironborn who will walk in there. But I expected it to be Theon who put that axe in that guy's head. Theon. Shunk into Kenning's head. You're not going to leave? Shunk. But instead, he was a reek. And somebody mentioned on the comments that he didn't say, I don't know. He said, you don't know. You don't know.
That's what it
don't
was.
understand. I'm Reek. I thought he was going to be really brave, like I'm pretending to be Theon, the Theon who fucks whoever he wants, the Theon who kills whoever he wants, the Theon that was Ironborn the day he was born and hasn't changed since. Instead, he was a sniveling fucking baby, and I thought that was not expected. Just wanted to point that out for me.
Did you guys touch on the Ironborn scene yet, or have you gotten there?
We're just leading in right now.
That's what we're talking about.
Go ahead.
We're talking about it right now.
Okay. Any mention of the parody of when Theon got knocked out? Basically, it's the exact same theme.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's right.
They don't care who their leader is. They have their own interests in mind, which is kind of what a democracy is.
And
They do, except
with turncoats.
Eli, what did you want to say?
yeah, they're sort of chicken shit, right? As soon as they're
Hold on.
No, that's
as soon
it.
as
No,
somebody's
go ahead.
tearing the challenge down.
Okay. Y'all
Let's
are
just
both.
try to keep it organized.
All right. Eli, go.
I was just
Mr.
agreeing
Payne
with
said.
exactly what he said, is that the Ironborn just seem to be turncoats in general, even though that, like the great analogy that Ramsay gives about the Kraken and how useless it is when it comes on land.
Yeah.
Very good.
Maester Payne, what were you going to say?
No, Eli said it. That we're crossing swords there.
In the okay way. In the okay way.
The metaphorical sword meaning a pen.
At least you guys still have swords.
Yeah. In this story, it's rare.
Anybody want to add anything else to that scene with the Ironborn?
I have
You made a
nothing.
Great point, though, Maester Payne.
Agreed.
Just
Oh,
how great
yeah.
the blade thing looked.
Oh, that was disgusting.
Practical effects. I like that they went practical effects. That was awesome looking.
And with the skin guy too, I really like them going directly from him to the skin guy because it showed us that is the same person and what happens to them. And we all kind of saw it coming, but in the books, not so much. You're not quite sure whether, because when Ramsay's introduced, he's kind of telling them, "You'll all be taken care of. Don't worry about it." So.
You guys, we haven't even hit the two major scenes. I mean, come on, let's go.
We're working on it.
Alrighty. No more thoughts for events on the North, folks? I'll take that as a resounding no, and I will begin recapping events in the Vale. And I think we're all going to have a lot to say on this scene, so I guess let's just brace for our lives. Alright, so having murdered his wife, Peter Baelish meets with a few of the nobility of the Vale, including Lord Yonroyce, and another female lady and another male lord. Peter tells them that Lysa committed suicide by jumping through the moon door.
I believe it's Lady Waynwood.
Lady Waynwood, yeah, that's right. And I have a thought on her, actually, but we'll get to that. I'm sure you do, too. So Peter tells them that Lysa committed suicide by jumping through the moon door, but they do not trust him, bringing up his whorehouses in King's Landing and foreign blood, specifically. Royce demands to speak with Sansa, who is acting as Peter's niece, Elaine. She is brought into the group to speak, and she appears to crumble under the pressure of the situation, admitting her true identity to the group. But in the end, however, Sansa corroborates Peter's story and convinces them of his innocence. As Peter walks the group out of the Eyrie, he makes plans to have Robin tour the Vale. Sansa, fully realizing the power she has over Peter, accompanies them. And also, just outside of the Eyrie, Sandor, the Hound, Clegane, and Arya walk the narrow path towards the Eyrie. Coming to the Bloody Gate, they are informed of Lady Arryn's death by Donald Waynwood. Arya, rather than mourn the loss of her aunt, breaks into hysterical laughter as this is the second time the Hound's attempt to ransom her has been foiled. So, I don't know if you guys want me to just jump in with my thoughts or if anybody really, really wants to voice their opinions first.
I actually have mine outlined, and I can go through them real quick and get them done. Okay? First of all,
All right, go ahead.
Bronze Jan, Bronze John is mentioned in Yellow Fever, and it is what they called Yellow Fever. It is mentioned in Fever Dream, and it is what they called Yellow Fever. Just as a side note, Bronze John is what they called Yellow Fever. Okay? Unrelated, just interesting. That's where he got the name. I loved Lady Waynwin's reaction to Sansa saying something about women being oppressed, because it's so fucking true. And Sansa knows it through Cersei and through her own actions, so she says something about it, and Lady Waynwin is like, yeah, fucking, I know that's right. I loved that. I don't know if y'all noticed that. So Sansa is using her sexuality in a manipulative way, which tells us that when she was kissing Littlefinger, that was a manipulation on her part too, to some extent, unless she was interested, which I doubt. She keeps referring to Littlefinger as her savior in this episode and the last episode or two with Lady Lysa. That's all fucking bullshit. But she is playing it, and it's the devil you know rather than the devil you don't. That's exactly what she's doing with Littlefinger. However, Martin has said that in the next book there will be a chapter with Sansa that a lot of people are going to have a problem with, and I think that we're more justified than ever in thinking that that is because Sansa's going to have to deliver on some of the things she's enticed Littlefinger with. I think she's going to have to give Littlefinger head, to be honest.
Yes, I'm glad you said it.
Littlefinger's going to want to fuck her, and she's going to want to keep her virginity, and so she's going to pretend to be interested in him and blow him instead, and probably call him daddy through it.
Now we're just playing something out.
Oh, Lord.
No, seriously, because she calls him daughter, and it's a manipulative thing, and he's going to use that during that sex scene, and she's going to have to play it, and it's going to be fucking horrible, and we're going to know that she's doing her best to get out of losing her virginity. In the TV show, it'll be more apparent it's a manipulation. In the books, it'll be like, what the fuck are you doing? Bite it off. But she's going to play the game.
Especially when you got Ned connotations there. If that comes true, yeah, that's... Ugh.
And I think more than every single episode I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sansa killed Joffrey. I swear to fucking God, she killed Joffrey.
You're not going to convince me of that till my
true.
Day.
Until the
not
book
convinced.
tells us. And when the book tells us,
Until the book tells us.
I will do it.
If the book tells us that. Hold on. What if the book never says anything about that? Will you then recant your ways of thinking that Sansa killed Littlefinger or killed Joffrey, or no?
He'll still have his doubts.
If the book's end and we're never told it was Sansa, I will totally recount 100%.
Gotcha.
Merely the absence of evidence will be the evidence of absence in that case.
I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
My only point I was going to add, just because you happen to lead into it really well there, is with the Sansa, not on what you're thinking with Sansa, but her in general being more apparent or more aware of her surroundings than people think, is the very first time you ever see her is she's doing needlework and how great she is at knitting. And I think, what is the first thing you see her in this scene doing? When they walk in the room, she is knitting. And I think, just maybe it's because I have some Amish heritage where I have, they have quilting parties, and they literally are just pieces of fabric that 15 women are working on until it's done. It looks like nothing until it's finished. And then when it's finished, it is absolutely beautiful. And I wanted this for LaDonna. This was feeding right for you. I just noticed that with the quilting thing, that maybe since day one, Sansa's been very aware of everything.
And knitting a lie. Knitting a lie is actually a colloquialism, or an idiom.
You can also...
You're weaving.
You can also...
Oh, I did want to add one.
Hold on, LaDonna wants to...
Yeah.
No, go ahead, James. Finish so I can...
Alrighty, finish
One,
up.
I forgot, I skipped it totally. She's wearing black in the scene at the end, and even her hair is dyed black, so that was an interesting change from the way it's in the books. And my mom and I were talking about why that is. I think it's mainly, it is an appearance because she's about to go to Lysa's funeral. I think that's likely. But the truth, the reason she did that is because she has not had a chance to mourn her father's death, Arya's supposed death, her mom's death, Rob's death. She's not had a chance to mourn at all. this is her chance, in my opinion, to do that. Also, Arya's laugh, hilarious. People thought, I think it had a little bit to do with the Hound, that she was laughing at the absurdity of the Hound never getting what he wants. But I think the main point is she has now accepted that no matter where she goes, death and bad luck follows. And she thinks it's hilarious. And my mom used the perfect word to describe it, absurdism. It's a beautiful absurdist moment where something horrible becomes, it's a combination of horror, hilarity, and
like disbelief.
Disbelief, good way to put it.
Well, she says right before that, the only thing, there are lots of things make me happy. Killing Rorge, killing Oliver. Then she finds out Liza's dead and she laughs hysterically.
Good point, too.
LaDonna, you had a thought?
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to let y'all finish. I'm going to go off.
Do you want me to go off first? Do you want to go off first?
Go off. Go for it.
Alrighty. Where to start, though? Well, I guess I will, in spite of the fact that I do still disagree with James on certain aspects, I will give it to you, James, that you did nail the fact that Sansa was becoming a manipulative character. Not something I doubted, but I was very surprised at how fast that transition happened in the context of the TV show.
Agreed.
I find that in the books it's not quite as emphasized, or it's not even as, I don't think it's even occurring just yet at all. Exactly.
Agreed.
And that's why I actually had some troubles with this scene to some degree. You know, I guess I was very confused and unsure what to think about the meeting with Peter Baelish and the Lords of the Vale. For one thing, you know, Baelish can't be so stupid as to expect that the Lords of the Vale will not interrogate Elaine/Sansa. So either this is a really, really big mistake on the TV show for, you know, trying to just hurry along Sansa's, I guess, manipulative or cleverness arc, however you want to see that. But if assuming that he wasn't so stupid as to think, you know, that they weren't going to interrogate her and that he knew that they were going to, you know, ask Elaine Stone for evidence, I'm perhaps wondering if, you know, they weren't already in on that idea, that fact that, you know, that Elaine Stone is in fact Sansa Stark, and maybe they were plotting something in advance, but they're just kind of playing along with you know, this interrogation, even though they already know, and them and Peter already have this arrangement. In the books, of course, Lady Waynwood, the woman who is present, her ward is Harold Hardyng, and of course that's the person that they want to marry Sansa off. But in this current episode, what we get is that they basically are totally fine with the idea of Sansa marrying Robin the Heir. Now, again, maybe there are things being unsaid in this episode, and this is, you know, something that the TV show is trying to have us, the show viewers, believe, or maybe they are changing it completely from the books to the show. You know, I'm not sure, but I do wonder, you know, if they're going to play this whole intrigue in the Vale up later on rather than now. Perhaps now, you know, they're just trying to, you know, keep everything covert, because in the books later on, Lord Royce, I think, does openly challenge Peter Baelish's authority over the Vale. So I wonder if they're going to, you know, bring that aspect in later, whereas right now they're kind of all secretly in agreement over what to do with Sansa in terms of the temporary fate that awaits her. Or maybe they both are plotting with Lord Baelish on different aspects that they all probably disagree on, and later on that's going to come up. I don't know. I just thought it was really weird that Peter Baelish did not anticipate them interrogating Sansa Stark / Elaine Stone. So that's my only thoughts on that scene.
I completely agree. That whole thing just made Peter, especially with the character that at least the show has made him out to be, you know, even, especially us book readers know how intelligent he actually is, that it made him seem very fucking stupid to just sit there in that room and be like,
right?
Well, it was a suicide. I get everything. I showed up last week, married your daughter, you know, and don't ask questions, right? You know, that just seemed really fucking dumb, you know.
That's fair.
Agreed.
Yeah, I had figured that he had totally set it up until the point when you could tell that he didn't set it up.
The second he had that look on his face, like, oh shit, they actually asking questions. I was like, okay, what?
You didn't expect that? Like, really?
Yeah, right?
How did you not know that was going to be a thing, dude? I don't know.
Right.
The other small thought that I had on this scene was just a little. I made a huge contrast between Braavos and Peter Baelish. I think in our last, or Braavos and I guess, Jews and Judaism in our last review. I'm not going to restate it here again. There was some elements that kind of led me to believe that again. You can check out my own personal review for that. Won't get into that. But I will say, a slightly different note. Another plug. I'm very bad at plugging my things. Sorry, guys.
No, it's fantastic. Go ahead.
I'm laying it all out there for you. Last thought,
if I had videos, I'd be plugging. Sorry.
Just last thought on this scene, though, was a quote that Peter Baelish says to Robin, and that is, quote, "People die at their dinner tables, in their beds, ... squatting over their chamber pots." So, well, of course, one of them was reference to the purple wedding / I guess red wedding in a sense, and in their beds. I'm still hoping against hope that this doesn't go down a certain way, but I'm guessing this is a prediction to Shay's death, and then chamber pots, of course, Tywin Lannister. Unless they're giving a little homage to the book readers as opposed to the fact that they might change it around in the show. So who knows? I just thought that was cool. And that's all.
Sorry, one thing, LaDonna. It's super quick, and it's basically just a question. Do you guys think when Sansa turns to Littlefinger when she says he was my only friend, and I have the quote somewhere, but he tried to smuggle me out, blah, blah, blah. Do you think she was looking at him speaking of Dantos, or was she actually referring to Littlefinger?
Well, there was a scene, if you remember, before that where he says, "I'll be leaving, and you can come with me," and she says no, and it's after the Hound offer. So he did try to smuggle her out beforehand. It's the one he sets up on the boat where he says, it's the one where later she's on the pier watching the boat leave crying, and Shay's next to her. Before that, Littlefinger was like, "I'm leaving sooner than
I'm curious to see what LaDonna has to say, and I wonder if you're going to be able to answer any of my concerns or questions as I brought them up relating to this specific scene. So, want to take it away, LaDonna?
Yes, I would love to take it.
It's all yours.
And I would like to talk for just a couple of minutes, please, because I want to bring some threads together before people start talking, if you don't mind. But
I'll stop them.
Yeah, and it's hard for all of us. Actually, I sent James a T-shirt image today that said, "Don't mistake my constant interruptions for being rude. I'm just so excited about what I have to say." But anyway. First of all, let me address this. I am with all of you insofar as how quickly this moved through multiple chapters of what happened in the Vale. I mean, I'm like, wait, whoa, what just happened? I mean, we just like multiple chapters of unusual subversion on the part of Sansa that we didn't know what was going on. So I found that very strange, which leads me to believe if they've moved so fast through that there must be a hell of a lot that's coming up in the next season that must be something out of Winds of Winter. That's all I have to say about that, because they've moved her almost to the end of the book. So I'm like, okay, then what is happening? Which leads me to believe that they may be leaving Harry Harding out and concentrating on her only being a power in the Vale. I'll leave that with y'all. I found it very, as to the comment about who she meant was going to smuggle her out and who her friend was, I don't think it was Dantos. I think she was talking about the Hound. He was.
Oh, very good. Awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
He said, "I only had a few friends there," and he was really her only freaking friend. Come on, folks. We have been placed in this. She's gonna have a relationship with this man later. We know it. So
I recant my statement.
Now I don't disagree with you, MP. Obviously, Dantos was overlaid onto that, but her real friend was the Hound constantly throughout the whole thing.
That rape scene, when she was about to be raped, how he saved her, like that's the most kind thing anyone's ever done for her.
How about the fact that he pulled her back from killing Joffrey in the very first season and addressed her wound in front of Joffrey, which was anathema. I mean, you would think Joffrey would say, What the hell are you doing? Oh, no, he said, you know. And then he gives it to her and says, you better keep it because you're going to be needing it again. I mean, that was one of the kindest things somebody could do. Okay, leave that one alone. I find it very interesting also, James, you pointed this out, that when she said, you commented on Lady Waynwood doing this. Well, the comment that Lady Waynwood did this to was when she said I was married off to somebody I didn't, or Liza was married off to somebody she didn't love, and then ultimately she got a chance to be with that person. Well, that's Sansa and the Hound again. And Lady Waynwood obviously was married off to somebody that she didn't love, and she was nodding her head. I was a pawn for political purposes, and I really love somebody else. That's what I got out of that scene.
Good point.
Okay. Allow me to say this. When she hits first of all, when she's in her room, I thought it was presumptuous of Peter Baelish to just walk in without knocking. I found it very unusual. Like she's a piece of property, which she has been, but she knows it. She knows it, and she's in there, and Eli, I love the comment. I'm going to get back to that in a second. She's actually making that dress. And if you remember, and I think she took Liza's mourning dress from Aaron being dead and started fashioning it to fit her, and she's putting feathers on it, which are not House Aaron feathers. They are dark feathers, which you could argue would be mockingbird feathers, but I think they're more crow feathers.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mockingbird feathers are gray, generally.
Exactly. I've got them in my backyard. But okay, and also remember, she first presents herself to Cersei at the banquet feast at Winterfell. Cersei looks at her, nice dress. Did you make it? And she goes, like a little girl. And she goes, yeah, like that's a piece of shit dress. Well, Sansa's in there making it. And I love Eli's comment that there's this web she's spinning. It's almost like what Ariadne in the Greek mythology, where she keeps sewing and spinning a web of deceits. Okay.
Arachne, yeah.
Arachne, thank you, James, the spider. Okay. Also, you guys, when she, first of all, some folks on the net said, did she have sex with him then? I did not think so. But I think she learned, like Cersei said, the best weapon is between your legs. And if you give that...
Till it backfires.
Well, maybe, but let me finish.
Gross.
Keep going. Keep going, LaDonna. The floor is yours.
But you know, she's not going to give that up. That's her ace in the hole, man. Her virginity is her ace in the hole.
No pun intended.
And no pun intended. Okay. Sex with him then. And I thought it was brilliant of her saying, I know what you want. And he's like, blah, 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 because Littlefinger, for some reason, keeps running his damn mouth in front of her. And she kind of looks at him and has a slight smile on her face. It's like she doesn't really reveal it. It's a Mona Lisa smile, like, oh, I can tell you, but no, I don't fucking think I will. Yeah.
Did we get our hold on. Did we get our first LaDonna F-bomb ever?
Oh, no, I've seen
Hell no.
It's one of my favorite words. Sorry, folks. Okay. So, ask my colleagues. I probably say it more than they do. Okay. Now, when she hits those stairs, when they're all coming down, they're talking about blah, 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 and they leave, and he gives Robb and Aaron that great speech about you can die anytime. And I think this was not about Robert and Aaron. I think it was about Sansa. You can die anytime. You can die on the privy. That's Tywin. You can die at your table. You can do this. That was Sansa's ultimate thing. I can die anytime. My family's dead. What the hell's worth living for? I'm gonna make a difference. She decides I don't fucking care anymore. And that was Arya's laughter. I don't fucking care anymore. It's the existentialist absurdism of life, and that goes to the existentialist argument that Tyrion did later with the bug crushing, which I'll hold off on. But he says that to Robb and Aaron about you can go anytime. What's important is you live right now and do what you have to do. Right then, Sansa comes up on the top of those stairs with that incredibly brilliant sun behind her. And folks, almost half of the the house shields in Game of Thrones has a star symbol on their shields. And that light behind her that almost didn't let you see who she was at first is an important symbol in my opinion. As she comes down, her hair is not black. It's dark, but there's red in it too. It's almost like she assimilated Ned's dark hair with her mother's deep auburn hair. It's like she's almost assimilating her family again. And he says to Robin, you need to take charge of your life. Well, that's when she shows up, and I thought, hallelujah. God, come on. And then, of course, when she comes sashaying down those stairs, and she's channeling Cersei and definitely Marjorie when she says, shall we go? I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, man. I want you to work this man. I want you to work him so hard he doesn't know.
If I can add one thing to what you just said, I think that's what, by not knowing the depth of Sansa, it's hard to understand what she was learning the whole time. By being around Cersei, by being around Joffrey, honestly, by being around Marjorie, and ultimately by being around Varys. Littlefinger.
We got bits and pieces, you know. She said snarky things to people, you know. Will you pray for me? You as I pray for Joffrey. Well, you know, we get snarky things like that. The fact that she bowed and kissed that heart-eater sword, and everybody thought, well, that's a metaphor for giving somebody a blowjob. Yeah, I think she's going to do that to Baelish if that's what it takes to get away from him. But she will remain intact as a virgin, in my opinion. But that speech of hers about having only one friend, that was the Hound. It was only the Hound.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say on her is I thought it was shocking to see it develop so quickly. And I wonder where she goes now. But yeah, come on, Sansa. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I thought she was going to do. But it came on so fast. And that's all I have to say about that.
Very, very interesting. And
she's definitely had her teachers the way Arya's had her teachers. They're just two different worlds of teaching mint.
They learn through different methods.
Yeah, but they do seem to both be falling into, over and over again, they both just seem to just fall into the laps of people who are very skilled in specific things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be a political machinator. That's what her goal is. She will be a singer, which in the books is a diplomat working its way. That's what I have to say. Oh, by the way, Charlie, I wanted to tell you something. Is it Preston? Yep. Preston Jacobs?
Preston Jacobs?
I don't know what that means.
Little
I know that name for some reason. Yeah, the guy who plays him, isn't it?
No. Charlie, the guy you told me to watch the videos of that talks about interaction between Littlefinger and Braavos and how he got that money?
Yes.
I found that mind-blowing.
What video did I tell you to look at? I don't remember.
I don't think it was Charlie. There was a lot of people
me.
To go watch Preston Jacobs videos because they are extremely
It was somebody
in-depth.
on my channel who said that. It wasn't me.
If you haven't watched it, folks, watch it. Because how Littlefinger gets the Bank of Braavos to loan the money, in my opinion, watching that has to do with him having a great-grandfather down there. And I think that's going to be extremely important.
Alrighty.
Could Littlefinger be the bank's Littlefinger? You know, like the whole world is wrapped around the Littlefinger of the banks. You know, just on that thought, I've never considered it.
I think there is a definite.
But maybe he's
metaphor.
Maybe he's got all of that money he filtered off or skimmed off of King's Landing at the Bank of Braavos. So he's got like Swiss bank accounts.
I gotcha.
Yeah, because he's not paying for any lands or anything like that. So all the money he has is not really going to anything.
Exactly. And this video explained how he could have done it, what areas he could have skimmed it from, and where he could have hidden it. It was a great video.
Cool.
Any other thoughts on this scene, folks?
The only thing I would say is the Hound's going to die. He's infected. and I love him.
I do want to
Only metaphorically.
I do want to. Yeah, he's not dead in the books, in my opinion. I think that's obvious, but I think they are playing that a little too openly. Everybody I've watched on the internet who has not read the books is completely aware he's about to die because of that infection. And I think it'd be actually funny if we don't get that. But I did tell my mother, other than his whole confession thing, he still hasn't heard that Sansa married Tyrion, the imp, which is what makes him flip the fuck out. So he might not.
No, it is have it is important that somebody tell him that Sansa was forced to marry the imp, because that is going to.
I agree. That was what I was saying. That it is important that that occurs, and it has not happened yet. So in order for it to occur, we need some other interaction with the Hound. He's gonna die. The last
Probably
that died. This last.
Why it brought him so close to the Vale. That's why he's there. Somebody there is gonna tell him.
That's a good.
Sansa.
In my opinion, they're done at the Vale. Nobody gives a fuck about it being Arya Stark. I don't think they even believe her now that she's laughing out loud. They're going to shoo them away, get the fuck off the property. But you're right. Something in the Vale. I'm thinking Erie. You mean that whole area. So you're right.
But at this point, she has, in the show at least, said that I am Sansa Stark. So that's going to get around, you know. And if Arya is standing outside the gates, I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't at least hear about it.
I hear you. I don't think anybody's going to believe that's Arya Stark. And the next scene we see Arya and the Hound in my opinion, they're not even going to explain it. They're just going to have them completely out. I think we all agree the Hound's going to die at the end of this season, right? Can you just give me 2 seconds, okay? We heard at the beginning of this season that episode 2, we knew what episode 2 was going to be, but David Benioff of DBYs, I think, were the ones who said it. They said that, no, it was the director of the second episode, said that this is the tamest episode of all of them. Listen to what's going to happen in the last episode, because the 9th episode is the whole North being fought. We're going to get the Hound dying and confessing everything to the Arya. We're going to get the revelation of Tysha from Jaime to Tyrion. We're going to get Tyrion killing Tywin. We're going to get Bloodraven, and we're going to get Cat coming back.
Next episode?
No, 10. Episode 10. All of that in episode 10. That is a fuckload of stuff.
Hang on, you didn't talk about the Children of the Forest since it's named Children.
Yes.
Bloodraven and Children of the Forest. You're right. Children of the Forest.
I personally don't think we're going to see Lady Stoneheart until next season. It's sad.
I think she'd be a great.
It's the end.
Should be a great opener for episode 1 for the last episode or the last season of episode 1.
I thought we were going to see her right away this season.
She will be the last scene of this season. I will bet any of you.
I'm inclined to believe
death.
He'll be one of the last.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, LaDonna.
My prediction is she's the last scene because that gives the audience hope that the Starks will rise again.
Absolutely.
I'm inclined to agree with you on that. Unless if it doesn't happen, it'll be first episode next season. That's all.
I did want to. Yeah, I mean, to me, doing it first episode next season is
an epic opener. I don't know.
It's a big opener. I agree, but you've already lost the opportunity of it being a holy fucking shit moment, which it is, without a doubt. She is the first person we really care about who we've seen dead, who we find out later is not dead. Jon Snow later. I know there's a lot of other things. I did want to add something I forgot to say. One is that the reason, this is random, I know. The reason it was such a big deal to me that Dolorous Edd stuck up for Sam is because in a previous episode, he was the one telling Sam, of course we left you, you're fat and you're slow, you probably would have died. In this episode, he's helping Sam, he's supporting Sam. And also about Ramsay and Roose, David Benioff for DBYs, one of them in an interview recently on Game of Thrones YouTube channel, said about that scene, everything horrible that Ramsay knows, Roose taught him. So to me, Ramsay is a result of Roose in its entirety.
I think Charlie's gone, James.
I invited him back. He probably got a phone call, or he's frustrated that I'm getting off topic again.
Our moderator just left.
Which would be really funny if Charlie just left with it on in the background, just like whenever James is done fucking talking. Oh, okay. One last thing, I saw online somebody say, as every teenager does, Sansa finally goes through her goth phase. I thought
Epic.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Just one thought to tie into something you said, James, though, on the ending of this season. I'm inclined to go along with what you're saying on Lady Stoneheart, because it would mirror what happened at the end of season 2 with the White Walkers kind of appearing with the Whites en masse and marching through the north. Whereas, season 1 and season 3's ending was Daenerys kind of rising above in some kind of way. Like in season 1, she comes out of the ashes with the dragon's hatched. In season 3, she's not exclaimed, she's hailed as Misa, the mother. So
right.
Hey, let me add this, please, because it's my favorite Sylvia Plath line.
Go.
Out of the ashes I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air.
Melisandre?
Why do you like that
Phoenix.
so much?
Sylvia Plath poem. I forget what it's called.
LaDonna has to love the Phoenix Saga.
No.
My mom loves fucking comic books, but she hasn't read one in years.
I've loved them forever. I turn all my kids
Anybody who wants to know that poem, it's Lady Lazarus.
Oh, I remember that poem. I read it in high school. All right, shall we go to the last scene, folks?
Well, yes. Let's do the Tyrion and Jaime thing first.
Of course, that's part of it.
Huge.
All right, so I'll just talk about that.
Cousin Orson.
Cousin Orson.
3 words.
Orson Scott Card.
Cousin Orson.
Well, I'm sorry, 3 words. What were the 3 words?
Cousin Orson.
Those are 2 words.
Are you sure?
2 words.
Cousin or son. Very fucking brilliant. Very fucking brilliant. Cousin.
Oh, I just got that.
I did not. You're fucking brilliant, Maester Payne. That is
Nice.
Although,
Cousin or son.
go ahead and give your recap.
All right. Well, I'll just recap the discussion, I guess. There's not really much to say. Shortly before his trial by combat is to begin, Tyrion discusses his chances with his brother Jaime. They began discussing about their slightly mentally handicapped cousin Orson, and his knack for murdering beetles. And Tyrion basically discusses for a long time, his lifelong goal of trying to figure out why Cousin Orson smashes beetles. And this is something he would ponder over, focus so much on, ask Orson, try to make Orson stop in some cases, to no avail until Orson, of course, is killed. And even at the end, the question is apparently or seemingly not answered.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously prompted a lot of people out there to start questioning what this is supposed to mean. I, of course, had a whole wide array of thoughts on that. Some people commented on my video. I made a lot of great comments as well on what that possibly means. I know, Eli, you said you had a great theory on it. I'm looking forward to hearing it. I guess if you want me to hear my personal thoughts, unless you guys want to go first, since you probably already heard mine.
I think we all have some pretty deep thoughts. Why don't you go first, Charlie?
Alrighty. Nothing. Well, I'll keep it fairly light then. It can act as many things. I think one way, kind of the Beatles and the Orson image, and this comes out when Jaime kind of points out to Tyrion, why are you so concerned about Cousin Orson killing beetles when people all over the world are dying? It's a bit of a jab, or a bit of a little, not a snipe, but a little comment towards us, the show viewers, the book readers, those of us who like to dissect and try to figure out what's going to happen in the series. I guess pointing out, why we're so focused on trying to figure everything out, whereas there's so much more important things happening in the world, or so much more violence in the real world going on. I think it's also, and a commentator on my YouTube video made this comment, that it's also a way to point out that, we're probably not going to find out everything that we want to know from the series. So a lot of our questioning and our theorizing is in vain. I forget who said that, but whoever you are, shout yourself out in the comments, because great thought. What else was there? There is also, of course, the obvious metaphor with the scene that comes right after with the mountain squashing Oberyn's skull like a beetle. I'm trying to think of what else there is. I had a few other thoughts, and I can't seem to remember what they were, but if anybody else wants to take it up from here, by all means, go ahead. But those are my immediate thoughts that I thought of just now when I was, or at least my thoughts that I had before, so.
I'll go if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Y'all don't mind. I agree about it being a little bit that there aren't answers, but I think there aren't answers yet. Y'all are just going to have to hold the fuck up because this is halfway through. This is kind of the turn of the tide. Tywin getting killed by Tyrion is the part where we start to be like, because Joffrey's death is really not fulfilling in the books. It's Tywin's death that you start to be like, all right, I'm fucking in here. But I think it's no answers yet. Martin has said in interviews that he plans on answering everything at the end. Everything he intends on answering, I guess. I had not thought about cousin or son, Maester Payne. That is fucking brilliant, and I'll have to think about that elsewhere. We had a guy by the name of Abdul Rahman Adeni, who noted that Orson Scott Card, who wrote Ender's Game, which is a fantastic book. Orson Scott Card's kind of an asshole, but the book itself is good, and it was written a long time ago. But Orson Scott Card hates the television version of these books, and Martin loves the television version. He said it's disappointing watching things he put in the book not be in the TV show, but for the most part, he loves them. Orson Scott Card hates them, and he hates them, he claims, because of David Benioff and D.B. Wise is what they're doing. So it was kind of them making fun of Orson Scott Card as being the crunk, okay? But I also think that here's the two things I think it is mainly. Number one, it's about the questions we're left with at the end of life, the questions that go unanswered, the things that flash through our minds at the end of our lives. Because this is arguably Tyrion's last moment to talk to his brother, and he wants to know what some mentally handicapped cousin of theirs was thinking as his purpose for doing something which seems meaningless in and of itself. And that's about Tyrion having an almost meaningless question, and the question itself is about the meaningless purpose of what somebody's doing about something meaningless, like the whole meaninglessness of life and the random things we think about throughout it and the things that we're left with at the end. But I think that the main purpose of it was it's George R. R. Martin, and about the no answers yet, it's George R. R. Martin seemingly killing things without purpose. But we're going to have the reasons at the end. You're going to understand what we're working towards. But right now, it seems like some mentally challenged, mentally handicapped person just deciding, they're dead, they're dead, they're dead, they're dead. And I couldn't help but be reminded of the quote in Fight Club after the narrator beats the shit out of Angel Face, and Tyler Durden comes up to him and says, "Where did you go?" And he says, "I felt like destroying something beautiful." Because Oberyn is like the fucking badass of every character. He's cool as shit. He fucks anything that moves. He's awesome, and he just gets obliterated. I also, if y'all don't mind, am going to read something from Clash of Kings, because the Orson thing is not in the books at all. Mm-hmm. But this is in the books. This is Davos and Davos and Stannis talking to each other. And Stannis is questioning his motives. They're about to invade the castle in their area, whatever it's called. They're trying to consider what to do. And Stannis has got he's in some weird mood. And he says out loud, "Renly offered me a peach. At our parley," when he and Catelyn and Stannis was trying to convince Renly to give up, basically, and Renly was like, "Nobody wants you as their king. Women deny it, children deny it in their wombs." Okay. And Renly offered him a peach. This is what Stannis said. "Renly offered me a peach. At our parley, mocked me, defied me, threatened me, and offered me a peach. I thought he was drawing a blade, and went for mine own. Was that his purpose, to make me show fear? Or was it one of his pointless jests? When he spoke of how sweet the peach was, did his words have some hidden meaning? The king gave a shake of his head, like a dog shaking a rabbit to snap its neck. Only Renly could vex me so with a piece of fruit. He brought his doom on himself with his treason, but I did love him, Davos. I know that now. I swear I will go to my grave thinking of my brother's peach. That is pretty much exactly what, if y'all didn't see the point of that, it's an absolutely unanswerable question that Davos says, I will go to my grave thinking of my brother's peach. An answer he'll never have. What was the purpose of Renly mentioning this peach? What was the purpose of Orson smashing these beetles? To me, those are the exact same mirroring. I will go to my grave thinking of my brother's peach.
Okay. Anybody else got something to say? Because I've got a...
Let me give a page number for that, if anybody...
Oh.
It's on page 613 and 614 of Clash of Kings. Okay.
James, you brought up a lot of things that I think I totally agree with you on. I was going to actually mention the George R. R. Martin comparison with the Orson and the Beatles, and the Beatles being characters. But LaDonna, you wanted to say something, or was it Eli?
Oh, go ahead, LaDonna.
MP, you got something to say?
Oh, sorry, I thought James was about to read some more.
No, I'm done. That was it. Sorry.
To touch on what you just said, think about Oberyn's last words, basically, which were, no, 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 you can't die now, you haven't confessed.
Good point.
Wanting somebody dying, Dan is thinking about this, Ned dying, not revealing secrets, possibly Tywin later on. And then all of a sudden he gets squashed, which I kind of like. Obviously, the Cousin Orson thing, I think, is too coincidental of a name. And I think the point is, I tried to mention it earlier about them having the guessing game of these only 2 songs in Westeros. Obviously, there's more, but we only ever hear the 2, which is sort of similar to us over analyzing who killed or who Jon Snow's parents are, maybe possibly Targs, however many twin Targ theory, whoever's thinking about that. And there's so much else to wonder about, which I think both you and Charlie have already touched on here. But the fact that they're puzzling a question from this guy, Cousin Orson, whose name technically references a question that everybody is talking about at one point or another throughout this story. Like, who is he? Is he a cousin or is he a brother or son? Which I thought was far too coincidental.
I'll jump in. I'm actually absolutely ecstatic that no one even apparently noticed what I noticed. This entire scene and the entire analogy about Orson just screamed one word to me, and that's Hodor. And
Really?
yeah, just because and I think it kind of depicts that, how they say, how Tyrion is watching him, and he keeps saying that he doesn't keep doing what he's doing for no reason. There's a purpose behind what he's doing. And I think that it's very, I don't know, just kind of ironic that the series' most intelligent character, at least in my opinion, is Tyrion, as far as book smart, and he is most interested in the dumbest character on the planet, the big retard, because what is he doing? And
What is that? Sorry, if I can just put in one more quote there, Eli.
That was awesome.
It reminds me of the Confucian quote that the wise man learns more from the idiot than the idiot learns from the wise man.
Exactly,
Keep going.
But and it just plays in with going back to a couple videos ago, I got brought up about that the Bran vision, sorry, LaDonna, the Bran vision about when he's seeing all the things, and I brought it up that deer says Hodor, the dead deer says Hodor, and I thought that Hodor meant something more, and this kind of harkened back to that, where I think there's a purpose behind either what he's saying or what it means. I'm not sure which, but I think there's something to be said that the smartest character in the novels is paying attention to the dullest and thinks and what he wants is important for some reason.
Eli, I think you are absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Definitely a part of it. And it did not occur to me. Both
Yeah,
of them.
the Hodor. I was just waiting for the word Hodor to come up, and I was like, no, they're gonna take it. So, okay, Hodor didn't come up, especially with the big dumb cousin. I can't believe no one thought to the dull-minded.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's always saying Hodor, and I thought saying Hodor was in turn squashing beetles.
I love you guys. Cousin or son, Hodor being the
Yeah, that blew my mind. That I did not even consider. That was crazy, MP.
I like yours. That was pretty slick, man.
My turn.
Go for it, LaDonna.
Nail it.
First of all, I think what everybody has said is brilliant. I really, really love those ideas. I'm going to add this to it. If you look at it superficially, this is a very long speech, and the first time I heard it, I went, they wasted a bunch of time. The second time I heard it, I went, I'm getting this. And the third time, I think that I nailed it in my own way. It's not to take any glory away from yours, because I think yours were great. I think, number one, we have to talk about Martin being the great soul crusher. And why is he killing off all these people? Is there an ultimate reason for it? Is it going to work out in some way? Number two, it could be God, because he puts these players on Earth that are crushing other folks. And is there a reason for it? And why is God letting this happen? That's the ultimate reason. That's really what Tyrion's doing in the cell is, why is God putting me through this trial? Why, when I'm innocent? And it's what a lot of us feel like on Earth when we're going through our own trials and tribulations. You want to say, is there really some overarching scheme for me? I mean, is this going somewhere, or is it meaningless? Another thing is, I don't think we can dismiss this mountain analogy that we have talked about throughout it, that there may be some... I'll leave that alone for a minute. MP, that was a brilliant observation about cousin or son, because, Eli, you talked about this before, that everybody is ultimately related in this, and is it right? And son is very close, cousin is everybody. The person who mentions that is Jamie, who killed cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that...
Right.
And there's no word for cousin killing.
Exactly. And he obviously has thought about that, because he did it and he shouldn't have. Because whether he should have or not, he's struggling with the fact that he killed a close family member. The other thing I would say is that I think this is really the difference between Jaime and Tyrion, because Jaime got distracted. Remember, Tyrion says, you know, for a while you thought about Orson, but you got distracted, and then they kind of do a nod, wink, wink. He got distracted by sex with Cersei. And Tyrion didn't have that because nobody was interested in him. He got to sit back and watch humanity and try to figure it out. And I really think this is what the main thing of this is. Why does humanity feel that they have to be conquerors? Why does humanity have something innate within them that makes them want to kill another living being? And Tyrion sat back for a long time, so long that he couldn't draw himself away from this person. He wanted to know what it was, and he says, even in this person's mind, it made sense to him. There was a reason why he felt like he had to put out life. And this is this is truly to me an overarching thing. Why do human beings feel that there is destiny that makes them a conqueror worm? And that, does it serve some ultimate justice, or is it just meaningless destruction of our universe? And I do think Martin is playing into that. Tyrion obviously is a great observer of humanity, and he sat back and watched it and tried to figure out in a macrocosm, why does life try to take other life? And he even says at one point, I guess I'll have to kill the mountain myself. Won't that make for a great story?
I loved that line.
And then Bronn says, I hope to hear them sing it one day. Also, he also says, much has been written of heroes, but less of morons. And I think that has to do with that, and actually, Brody Sangster said this in his interview. What is a hero? There are plenty of people who have been heroes that are not talked about. Sometimes it's just one person who tries to make things better, and they're unsung. And also Tyrion says, when I'm hearing that thunk, 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 did I hear dragon wings? Meaning, did he hear conquerors coming? He said, no, I just heard thunk, 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 meaning that it was meaningless. People just swath through like locusts. And we've got that locust imagery with his Dolorite. People just come through like locusts. I didn't hear dragon wings. All I heard was killing, killing, killing. And then he talks about, he doesn't say the Darkland Plain, which is used in poetry. He says, all I saw were millions of carcasses on the beach. That to me is the existentialist idea of, am I just going to end up like a shell, bones on the earth, a beach? And what does it mean? Did I have any consequence in this life?
It's also the scene from that. What's the movie where Death plays chess with a knight on a beach?
It's the Bergman movie. I'll think of it in a minute. But also, let me finish while I'm on the second thought. I also think that, and I started out this way, I'm going to end this way. Tyrion's trying to teach Jaime to think deeper. Jaime already is struggling with killing his cousin. And he's trying to find the word. There isn't one. Jaime doesn't think deeply. Jaime, what do I care? Thousands of women, children are killed every day. Who the fuck cares? He says, who the dusky fuck cares? But Tyrion is teaching Jaime, you need to think deeper about your life and what the meaning of it is, because I think I'm going to get killed tomorrow. And I think this is setting Jaime off for an existentialist crisis of his own.
I think you have a point there.
We know that's coming. We've seen that coming. And
right,
I guess
Tyrion is the intelligent one who's trying to. In the past 4 or 5 episodes, we continually see Tyrion prod Jaime about, you're fucking Cersei, dude. Rethink this.
Yeah, but
I know you've been trapped forever, but what can I do but remind you? It's the best a brother can do.
Yeah, well, it is. And
Nice.
And Jaime has said he's had problems with reading before. He has dyslexia, and he never was a great reader, so he's not going to go and look those books up like Tyrion and Sam does. But Tyrion is trying to invest in him. You need to really start thinking about these things, Jaime, because you're making some fucking critical errors.
All right.
Which is also Martin telling us we should really start thinking about these things.
True.
Because we're making some critical fucking errors.
That's right. There you go. That's all I have to say.
All right. You might want to add anything to that scene?
Just want to say, Charlie, I love the anecdote you had in your own review. That was great.
Oh, thanks. I wasn't sure what that would come across as. Oh, it was just basically on the way back from watching the episode at my sister's place. I came across a homeless person on the street, which is not surprising because I live in Toronto and they're everywhere. I mean, it's not a thing. But for this one time, after watching that episode and watching this one scene with that one line about the beetle crushing, it got me really thinking into all kinds of territory. And when I saw this one homeless person, it was, I think, the first time in a long time I actually paused and really thought as to what I should do, if I should give them money, if I should go buy them food. Like, I guess I saw myself in the position of that stupid ogre or the stupid cousin Olsen kind of smashing down on the homeless person without a second thought by not doing anything. I guess if that makes any sense. That was the gist of.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic.
Great. Great.
At the end of the day, while I was standing there waiting, a girl actually went to a restaurant and came out and gave her his food. So, faith in humanity restored there. So I ended up going on my way. But yeah, that was basically what came out of that scene for me. Like, I was really in a daze afterwards.
Yeah, there's so much thought after watching that scene, like trying to make sense of it, and I'm glad watching you guys. You all filled in gaps that I had touched on, but you hit it way better than I did. I mean, that was a great scene.
I think you guys all brought some like amazing different perspectives on this scene, and on one small, seemingly insignificant question, so much thought emerges from it, which is kind of cool.
That wasn't written by Martin.
Yeah. I think this is a scene that we will end up with everything that happens always going back to this scene and be like, nope, this is what it meant. This is what he meant.
I've watched it 5 times already, I think.
If I can add one more thing, there's a scene in A Dance with Dragons when Dany's walking back in the desert, and James and I have talked about this in the meaning of the scene, where she falls asleep on an anthill, and they're all swarming her and basically trying to eat her, and she questions what that means. I think this goes back to this particular scene.
Might be right.
I did want to add one little thing to it. There are words for killing your cousin, and because Latin has different words for your paternal cousins and your maternal cousins, the word for killing your paternal cousins is called patrulicide, Patrulicide, and for killing your maternal cousins, it's sobrinicide, Sobrinicide.
Take that, Jamie.
Yeah, fuck you, Game of Thrones. We're better than you.
That's another thing too, right? The whole "I'm better than you, I'm gonna crush you" sort of aspect of things.
Yeah, no shit.
I missed all you said there, LaDonna. I cut out and could not hear anything that you were just saying.
Well, I just wanted to add this. If there are for that stuff, it's a sad damn world we live in with humanity.
No shit. If people had to take time out of their day to make up a word for that.
Well, with all the marrying of cousins,
I would just say kinslayer.
A cousin will kill a cousin.
Yeah, kinslayer. We can just lump them all in.
In one category, why not? Shall we continue on with the last portion of the scene and the episode? Alrighty. So, when Tyrion is taken outside, he has a brief conversation with his champion Oberyn, who is confident that he will win. Sir Gregor Clegane arrives shortly thereafter, and the trial commences. During the fight, Oberyn demands the Mountain admit to raping and murdering his sister Elia and her 2 children. Oberyn lands several skillful attacks on the Mountain, knocks him to the ground, and lands a near-fatal blow. Oberyn then screams at the Mountain to confess, hoping the Mountain will admit that it was Tywin who gave the orders clearly. At least in Oberyn's mind, it seems that it's Tywin. But as Oberyn circles the Mountain reaches out, knocks him to the ground, then gouges out his eyes while confessing to the murder of Elia and her children, and subsequently crushes Oberyn's skull. The Mountain then collapses to the ground from his grave wounds. Tywin rises and sentences Tyrion to death for regicide.
I have barely anything to say on this scene, though, so I'll just go first real quick to get it out of the way.
Go for it.
And that would just be to, like you were saying, we always kind of think that the titles have more of an overarching theme on the episode, usually. And I think this is one of the few episodes, I agree with you, Charlie, that it's one of the few episodes where it's a little more straightforward, and it's kind of just means what it did. But I did see that in that specific scene, I think that maybe that in itself, the Mountain versus the Viper, with him, the poison, the strength, I think it's maybe a play on no matter how strong you are, you can't win with just strength. And no matter how well you plan ahead, you don't know what's going to happen. Like Oberyn, he won still, technically, killed him, did what he planned on, but no matter with all of his planning, he didn't plan on getting his head crushed, So that's the only thing I was thinking is maybe a play on, like, you can't, not just strength, and also maybe a play on pride, because he could have just fucking killed him, and he never did. but yeah, that's the only thing I was thinking on that.
Yeah.
I don't have very much to add either. Like I said, just to add on to what Eli said, he died basically because he needed this answer to who gave him this question. That's what he was focused on. He's pointing at Tywin. He knows the answer, or thinks he does, but he wants to hear it said. And then, screw you, buddy. You lose. Got kicked in the head by a mule. That's it.
I think he wants the public to hear it as well as him.
I think that's how I viewed it. Because in my opinion,
Hold
he's
on.
already poisoned.
We already know that he poisoned Tywin. So
They might do differently in the
We
book.
think, anyway.
Well, I mean, he's already getting his
Can't see
vengeance.
those.
I'm pretty sure he poisoned him. He wanted the public to hear it.
I agree with that, absolutely. But it's still that waiting for an answer when...
Yeah, I kind of like what you said earlier in this episode about that. Kind of, we see it at the end where he just wants the answer, but, you know.
That's what kills him.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Sorry, I think I stuttered or something. Yeah.
But you know, Cersei had this conversation with Tyrion a while ago because
There we go.
she said, "How do we have to keep cutting the heads off? You know, we kill one and 3 heads sprout." I mean, the question is, when do you stop the revenge? And he couldn't stop. I mean, he had it right there, and now, unfortunately, because of what's happened to him, his daughters are going to come and wreak revenge.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth, LaDonna.
And now,
And
now we're back to the ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk again. It never freaking ends.
That's kind of the whole story is kind of based off of the right of the Targaryens' revenge. You know, the revenge to come back and take back. You know, it's all revenge for everyone. Stannis, everybody. Everyone wants revenge for someone who was killed in their family, you know.
And that's what Barristan said. Peace is a pearl. You know?
An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
Yep. That's a good one.
I will say I'm looking forward to next season because with Dorne being filmed in Spain, and there's been a story going around that actually Jaime is going to be in Dorne. Although I don't know if that's more of a rumor, but there's been a lot of information being released about that.
Audition tape today.
With Obara Sand,
Was it?
it's
I don't
Obara,
know.
the oldest one.
No, a young girl. Cailin, maybe. I'm not sure whose name, but she's talking about a rumor in her audition tape of Jaime going to across the narrow sea.
Wow.
The only audition tape that was released was, I think,
Or
the one
being
used
smuggled across the narrow sea. Or
played
something
for
like
Obara.
that.
We also saw a potential Val that was cast, but she doesn't look like Val to me. I don't know who she'd be. Maybe Della. She's dark. I mean, they could change her hair, but I don't think her facial structure looks like something I would expect of Val. Maybe I'm just being prejudiced there.
They could also be misleading us intentionally.
Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
And people want to get their articles out there quickly because it doesn't matter to them how much bullshit it is. They just want the people to want it there. I did want to say 2 things. Number 1, and nobody said it yet, even though you're all thinking it. This scene was fucking awesome. It was, despite the book, it was still shocking, and he breaks his face into, which, by the way, I read an article which says that's humanly impossible. But still, cool.
Definitely humanly impossible.
Unless you're the Mountain.
Unless you're the Mountain. Well, it said even the Mountain, the strongest man in the world would be about 200 pounds of pressure, and it would take about 400 pounds of pressure to do that. But beautifully done, and it crushed the soul of so many viewers because Oberyn is such a badass character, and in the trailers they watched, the first inkling of him, you think, oh, I'm gonna fucking like him, and you do. You love Oberyn. He's there to avenge his family against the people who have done horrible things, and he dies.
And he's not prejudiced in any way, so every fan can love him, you know?
He was like a second Ned Stark character coming again, Someone we can all love, and they just kill off.
Just a baby.
I am happy though because we now have red wedding reaction videos for this scene now.
Yeah. I was trying
I saw
to
you
record.
on one in the comments. Sorry.
Question. Would Ned have wreaked revenge 17 years later for Lyanna? He didn't.
Mama, let's stay on topic for now.
It is a topic, James. Would he have?
I don't think so. I think you're addressing my comment on Oberyn being like a pseudo Ned Stark. I meant that more as a character that we can generally grow to love and appreciate for those good qualities he has, although he's not perfect.
Favorite.
Exactly. And somebody we just, get killed off for the sake of it. Well, not for the sake of it, but
It seemed like you were going to say something a minute ago, Charlie.
Oh, just that I was trying to film my sister's reaction to Oberyn's death scene, but she told me to cut out the camera like halfway through, so
She knows
Oh,
you have a fan.
Her reaction up till then was epic, though, and I'm so mad I didn't get it. But...
Did you post a video?
No, I think she made me stop filming right then and there. It was too much for her.
Hide your camera.
I know. Next time I got to be more stealth.
I wish. Yeah, my mom and I need to find somebody who hasn't read the books.
That's how you have to do it.
But it doesn't really work so well for people who've read the books.
No.
It's more just look away. Oh.
It was pretty gruesome. Yeah.
You kind of forget how gruesome that death actually is when you read in the books and it's on paper and you see it there, but then when you actually visually see it on TV, it's like mind-blowing.
And in the books, I mean, they're
really
all
well done.
You hear the teeth. Tyrion hears the teeth across the ground, and there's a crunch and complete silence. They could not have been. It was fucking awesome.
You're gonna
I just want to say,
pause it?
huh?
Did you pause it on the scene with the two of them laid out?
I did not.
No.
Pretty gross.
Oh yeah, I did see a picture.
I can imagine that much.
I was waiting for an Easter egg.
So,
Hard right here.
No Easter egg, no yin yang.
or some deep significant
That's what I was waiting
meaning
for.
behind
The yin yang thing. Yeah, exactly.
I was waiting, like they're in the shape of the. They are though on top of the. For some reason, that little fight area, whatever it is, it must be the area where they do the whatever the tournament competition is, where they all fight the brawl that Baratheon want to be part of. But if you look on there's a painted symbol of the lion and the stag, which is the Cersei's kids. It's so fucked up to me that that's a combination of them. Nobody does that. Baratheon kids are stags. It's what they are. But they did that. It's male and female. I mean, it's honestly some kind of equality resulting there. Like Cersei going, what keeps the fucking realm together? And Robert going, our marriage. Yeah, it's kind of true. All right. I have not found it, but somebody online mentioned that you can see the squire for Oberyn take a rag and run it up the spear before he throws Oberyn the second spear, which is easily poison. But regardless of whether that was intended to be poison or not, which I'm sure if that scene exists, that's what they're trying to tell us. There's an interview with D.B. Wise or David Benioff, one of them, the same one where he says that thing about Ramsay and Roose, on the Game of Thrones YouTube website, where he says he talks about the poison with Oberyn a little too bluntly about the mountain getting poisoned. He doesn't say anything outright, and who would guess that it's going to turn into a Frankenstein monster? But it's said. Anyway, fucking beautiful. Could not be more happy. And the next episode is going to be this epic fucking battle. The whole thing is going to be an epic battle that's going to put Blackwater in the dust, from what I've heard. And then the last episode, I'm just going to repeat this. The Hound's going to die. We're going to find out about Tysha. We're going to get Tywin getting killed. Shay getting killed. We're going to get Bloodraven, the Children of the Forest. We're going to get Cat coming back alive, in my opinion. And we're going to get Arya leaving for Braavos.
Craziness. Craziness.
Looking forward to it.
I am so excited for that too, and I'll be back that very day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, have fun on your trip, Charlie.
Thanks. I actually have to go and pack soon-ish, so.
You'll be back the Wednesday after next?
I'll be back. Oh yeah, I'll definitely be back on the Wednesday, for the Wednesday the 18th. I'll be in Poland for this coming Wednesday, but we'll see if I can make it work, because we do have. I'm staying at a hotel that does have internet access that I can, use at night. So
we'll have to have a live coming from Poland intro.
We would very much like
coming in live from Poland.
Are there any questions that were significant?
Haven't been following.
I looked kind of. It was mostly comments. I think there were a couple questions, maybe.
I think so too. It's hard to get the questions out of there. There's like a lot of comments.
Well, I've got to go, folks. I love you. I had a great time.
I did too.
As
Thank
did
you
I.
so much. Y'all are fucking brilliant. It's a pleasure.
Like I always say, James.
Everybody. It was a great episode.
You can find their links in the description below. Be sure to check every single one of them out. I want to see more videos from you, Maester Payne, and you, Eli Knight.
I'm working on it. I want to see LaDonna's too, by the way, and yours. You said you had one too. I'm waiting for those.
I'll set them up.
So don't give me shit until you guys put up another one. Just kidding. I'm working on it.
Alrighty, folks. Thanks again, James, LaDonna, for organizing this. Eli, Maester Payne, great comment as always. Great feedback commentary as always. So take care. Good night, folks.
Thanks for having me as always, guys. It's always great.
Our pleasure.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Always a blast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And LaDonna, again, I said, guys, lady, see you later.
She knows what you mean. We're all feminists here. Equality. I love you, Mama.
I love you too, darling. Good night. I'm going to bed.
Sleep well.
See you, honey. Bye-bye.